14.
Okay. Now we know why.
Well, they do have answers, so you have.
No, it was on our side. We were muted. Ask them now if you could, they can hear us now.
Films. Okay, all set.
Oh, is that perfect? Sorry about that. Great.
For those of you who don't know me officially, I know most of you in here, but Joe O'Donnell, Senior Director of Government and Community Relations Strategic Initiatives for the MTA, overseeing government and community affairs and outreach for Second Avenue Subway Phase 2. We're here to provide an update on some of the items that we've been discussing as part of the SAS2 task force, as well as there's some included updates in here, but we don't have to go through necessarily, the old stuff. Next slide. So brief agenda, just concerns from last meeting, some updates on those, status of the existing contracts and any upcoming work that is potentially impactful and should be on your radar, our environmental monitoring, and then obviously any additional concerns and questions we can discuss at the end of the update. Next slide. One of the marquee items, no pun intended, that we discussed at the last meeting, we've been discussing for quite some time now, is the update to business signage along the corridor. There's been a concerted effort to update the contract 1 and contract 2 fence wraps for the businesses who are visually obstructed by work zones in front of their place of business, as well as in some instances where the work that we're going to be doing necessitates removing the existing awnings because of the proximity of work to the building frontage. We'll also be replacing those awnings. So with regards to the updates from the last time, 6 businesses along 115th to 116th have gotten their new fence wraps installed. 5 businesses from 116 to 117, 5 businesses from 118 to 119, 1 business from 119 to 120, and new wayfinding signage has gone in along 106 to 108. So along with those wraps that you see there that indicate that the business on the other side, on the sidewalk side, is open for business and what the business is, we also have put up wayfinding signage on corners that let folks know the multitude of businesses that are down that block and that are still open for business and whether you should traverse down there to go see those folks. Currently in production, we also have some more of these fence wraps and the awnings that are currently in production and anticipated to be delivered this week. So there are more fence wraps for contract 1 and 2 for stores between 104 and 115 expected to be delivered this week. And the replacement awnings, they're temporary awnings that will be up for the duration of the project for the contract 1 folks from 105 to 106 and 109 to 110. That's expected to be delivered this week as well. Next slide. So here's an example of some of, that previous slide showed you the open for business signage. This is some of the wayfinding. It's been installed to let people know what businesses are open on the blocks that are impacted by construction. Next slide. These are examples of some of the awnings that are being produced right now and that'll be going up. What should be delivered this week, depending on how soon this week. It may get up by the end of this week, if not very early next week. But these are the awning signs. We went and met with each of the business owners who are going to be or had an awning removed and worked with them to get distinctive graphics and content that they were interested in having on their respective sign. Next slide. Another item was, along with quality of.
Joe, I hate to do this here, but since we're doing an update, it'd be easier if we just kind of piece it together. So that we can ask any questions about the signage.
So you want to stop at each point?
Let's stop at that point. Yeah, because if it was the first one, then I typically like you to do your whole presentation. We'll go back, but since it's a lot of little points, I think it'd be best if we just kind of go point by point.
Sure.
So what I did see the signage. Let's go back to the signage. So what businesses are missing currently? I think it's at the end.
Yeah, so there is at the end of the deck, there's an appendix that goes block by block that shows who we've spoken to, who's in the process of being produced, and who still needs to be spoken to. So, Angel, if you want to just go to the end. So that's everybody that we've engaged with or need to engage with at this point. There will be other blocks that may be impacted in the future, and we're continuing to identify as we understand from our contractors where we will be in the future so that we can get ahead of this moving forward.
So the majority should be delivered, if not installed tomorrow, but delivered at the
Sure, yeah.
probably installed by
By the end of this week or the beginning of next week.
Done?
Couple questions. Why are the signage going up where the fences have gone up later? It seems like contract 2 is getting their signs before contract 1. There are businesses that have been impacted a lot more, say, south of 110th Street.
So part of the concern with contract 1, and we've discussed this in the past, but for the benefit of the folks who may have not been involved in that conversation, there's a lot of accelerated work that's going on relative to contract 1 that wasn't initially anticipated. So work zones have sprung up in areas that we didn't get in front of. We could have done a better job of getting in front of that work. We have done that in contract 2. So that's why we're more current with contract 2 than we are contract 1.
I mean, okay, that still doesn't make sense to me because take where that block where Monte Carlo Diner is. Their gates have been up untouched for about over 2 months now. And they still don't have signs. And then the businesses on 116 where the 7-Eleven is, and I'm happy they got their signs, have their signs, and their gates have been up like a month and a half less. I guess my question is, there are different contractors on C1 and C2?
Yeah, correct.
Is it possible that the contractors on C2 are just doing a much better job than C1? And if
Well,
that is the case, what do you guys do when C1 is not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Because that's how it seems to me.
So it's a byproduct of 2 things. The byproduct of lessons learned from how C1 should have been done, and we're implementing those for contract 2 and getting in front of it, as I said. So that's being driven by our outreach teams, by Alejandra and the EHCC team on C2. So they're the ones driving that effort. They're the ones working with the business owners, getting the content, getting the signage developed through our third-party vendor. The contractor is merely paying for the signage and getting it installed. So we, as I say, could have done a better job, should have done a better job on C1 in some instances. In some instances, it is a knee-jerk reaction to acceleration where work zones are going up quicker than we anticipated, so we could not have been in front. So it's a perfect storm of things that it could have been done better and are being done better on C2, which is why you're seeing it roll out the way it is.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy it's moving in the right direction, but correct me if I'm wrong at this table, we thought a lot more signs would be up a month later than what's gone up there. That was not the conversation, is it? We heard this last time, that signs were coming that week or the week after. Well, they didn't come in the timeline, they didn't come in the time frame of what you said. And it's a lot. We can go back and play the video. You said they were coming sometime at the end of that week when we met Tuesday or the beginning of the next week. It did not happen.
Those are the ones that are up.
Okay, look, we can agree to disagree that I think 10 signs in a month is a joke. These signs, the fact that you're telling me you had to learn from C1 to C2 to make blue and yellow signs that you made 10 years ago is mind-boggling. And then we could go one step further, that in phase 1, as far as I'm understanding, there was legislation passed to get grant money for the businesses that passed the Senate, passed the Assembly, and Patterson struck down, that the public advocate had urged, but because that relied on legislation to be changed because it was not put into the beginning of phase 1. My question now is, why would the MTA have not considered making a fund for the businesses in phase 2 when the Assembly, the Senate, the public advocate all found that would have been very necessary in phase 1? And here we are again now, lessons learned. According to all of them, this was not adequate remediation for businesses.
So was the legislation that you talk about being struck down in phase 1, was it implemented now? Is it in place now?
No, that's
No. When you guys,
What are we talking about?
okay, so when you guys,
Talking about hypothetical.
you don't have to tell your contract, you can't tell the contractor, set $10 million aside for the vision. You can't do that.
Now, we're a transportation agency. We build infrastructure for transportation.
So the same way
This is a business mitigation that we are doing to try to help out where we can. There is no fund for loss of business or business impacts. It doesn't exist. And I've said that till I'm blue in the face, just like those signs.
You're 100% sure there's no way that could have been a requirement of this?
100% sure.
Okay.
The signage, is this, blue and yellow, I believe? Is this the permanent signage you're doing
So the
now? Or
signage
is
that
this
we've
a mediation until you put something that is resembling of what the awning would have looked like?
So the more distinctive signage that you see is the decorative awnings that we've worked with the businesses for to replace their awnings on a temporary basis.
Right.
Till the work's completed and we can reinstall their awnings. The blue and yellow signs that are on the fencing, that's temporary signage while those work zones are there, especially in the C1 work zone, in the C1 footprint, because all that stuff is, and as you'll see further along in the process here, it's all starting to go away before C3 eventually comes on. So C1 is going to start removing all of that work zone. So that's temporary signage. In the same vein, we are working with our MTA marketing team on a comprehensive, entire project-wide campaign, branding campaign. So there's a cohesive look and feel to that. We'll still work with the businesses on the branding for their signage for the business. So that may be separate and distinct, but all those gaps in those places that's otherwise just green fence wrap, we're working with MTA marketing to roll out a full project-wide branding campaign.
Because temporary for you is a very different what a small business thinks is temporary. Like
No,
you, on the level of this concept, and not you personally, but the level of this project, temporary could be 6 months, could be a year, right? That's what you would consider, because this is an extensive project. And meanwhile, for a small business, temporary means to them, I see your hands there, few weeks, few days. Mind you, like the donut place put up signs rather quickly and put up like 4 of them. It took them, I think, less than a week to do so, but it seemed they were more interactive signs. People could be like, well, this is a donut shop. I only say this because while your signage is appreciated that you have them up, it doesn't really give kind of like a distinction of what is really there. It looks more like to be a DOT sign, right? And people don't always kind of attract to that kind of signage. I would have thought that there would have been input from the business and something of their logo would have been incorporated into it to make it seem like, well, there's a thrift store there, there's a donut place there. Right now, I feel like I could say the Q line 106th Street. Like people don't, they kind of see monotonous signs and may not necessarily pay attention to them.
Well, again, one of the things learning from phase 1 of the project, and you guys seem to like what had happened at the end of phase 1 and wanted that improved upon. It's the same concept as what was given in phase 1. At the end of phase 1, it was black and yellow signs. Now it's blue and yellow. The only thing that's changed is blue and yellow. But otherwise than that, it's the exact same sort of template or concept for signage. One of the reasons why each of the signs is not distinct on the outside of the fence wrap is, again, we're going for a consistent look and feel so that it's not a hodgepodge quilt all up and down the, because then it starts to look like graffiti or it looks like it's not intentional. So that's what our intention was, to have a cohesive or a consistent look and feel. If it's not, I don't want to say appreciated, or if you would like to have more, or the businesses would like to have more, we can have those conversations as we move forward and as we look to replace those signage at some point, because those signs are not permanent, as you say, literally or figuratively. We're going to have to replace them, over the seasons or over time for wear and tear. So we can consider that moving forward, but again, it'll be a decision above my pay grade as to how creative we can get with those signages and what we want to do with the look and feel.
No, I understand what you're trying to do with the cohesiveness, but some of us like graffiti. It does give distinction to each different business there, even if it's just a small portion of the sign or the logo on the sign. Because right now, like I said, to most people walking through, it looks like a DOT sign, and they may not necessarily pay attention to it. But I have a few other questions. Sure. I know Xavier had a question, Nils had a question, Rose had a question, so let's go now.
Thank you. Joe, thanks for being here. I mean, we talked about this some time ago about, I'm very big as a business owner about brand, and Jose touched on that a bit, but I think, looking at what they did with phase 1 down there was a little bit more engagement with the businesses down there with the brand awareness and that passed through. So people knew where to find their local bagel shop or whatnot. There was more engagement. And I think that's hitting on that. And culturally here, what we have found in Community Board 11, and I think this is important, and I say this to the entire team so that everyone's aware, what we have seen as temporary often becomes permanent. And that is historical for generations. And Jose and I, although I'm senior by a few months, we, you and I both can attest to how often that is played out in this community, which is why we are champing at the bit for this to be corrected and for you guys to think holistically. So I ask you to, one, take back to your branding team, with your consistency for your branding and right wayfinding, that you incorporate the business's brands. And it could be as simple as a circle and it's boom, Amistad Pizza, come on in, right? A little plug-in that you can put in when you're doing massive print jobs. That layering in can lower your cost too. That's how you do that. When I bring this up, what are you going to do? We talked about C1, C2 corrections, and that we're getting in front of the 8 ball. Hopefully, we've got 3 and 4. So are we going to find that when we roll out 3 and 4, are we going to see this once you take on board? And we hope that you do. The funds should be there to implement that type of wayfinding and brand engagement across the board for our businesses as you run up and all wrap around.
So essentially what's gonna happen is C3 has been awarded now and given their notice to proceed, and they're in the process of ramping up. So what they're gonna do and to use a metaphor, as C1 backs out of the room in the 106th Street station area, C3 is gonna be following on. So as C1 gives up local areas, then C3 is gonna be taking over those areas, in some instances, establishing their own areas. So yes, we are gonna be in front of that on C3, just as we are, doing better on it with C2.
And as a follow-up, Chair, will the requisite be for C3 and C4 that once we come to terms and conditions here, that they'll execute and with your oversight?
Yeah, so whatever conclusion we come to after I bring this back downtown and we arrive at, how we're gonna do this moving forward, that would be implemented across the board. Matt Zedwalk, who's here with us today, is a deputy project executive for the entirety of the project, not specific to an individual contract. So Matt will, ensure that we implement this across all contracts. It's a project initiative, not a contract initiative.
Copy that.
Have you talked to UMass? Has UMass reached out to you guys? Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone?
Not that I'm aware of. Have you all heard? No, they haven't reached out to me.
We should connect you guys because they have about $100 million on their management, for cultural, economic development. And I'm surprised that they haven't reached out to you guys, because they could be, well, I still don't believe what you're saying. I'd like to see where it says you can't have made some kind of fund built in. They could possibly provide money to these businesses by way of grants, rent assistance. So I'd be happy to connect you with them. Xavier sits
No, that'd be great.
on the board, so it could give you guys potential financial arm to do
We are
this.
all for the collaboration, not only with this group and this task force, but with all the various entities on this task force and the groups that, come to the task force. We have small business services here tonight. David was kind enough to attend, and I know that I've worked with his predecessor, and I've worked with some of his colleagues on a whole bunch of different initiatives, and I don't mean to put David on the spot, but they work on grants, right? And there's only so much money in the pool, the kitty, for them to be able to help move the needle. So we're very conscious when we collaborate with organizations like SBS or this group that you're talking about, they, with their grant funding, it's finite, right? There's only so much they can do. So what we don't want to do is engage with a business and tell them that there's a pool of money available that's not actually available. We can help them with tools on how to help them market. We can help with some of the signage. We can help create, mall maps that we can put on our website, small business, like Saturday type events and things that we've worked with the chamber on in the past. So there's a lot of ways we can help move the needle on this, and we are more than happy to have a seat at that table. But the pot of money thing is just not an MTA.
Okay, look, I'll leave it at this, and I'll move away from the pot of money for now. I guess my thing is this. Let's just say you started it 100% like you did in phase 1 correctly. It was established 10 years ago that essentially what we are now aspiring to get to did not work. And so in 10 years or 8 years, whatever it was, there were no more creative solutions by what I'm assuming was tons of money and soft costs and R&D and all this. And the best you guys could come up with all this time later is we're going to get to where we were last time. That's it. That's all the thought that went into this, because I don't see any difference here.
So outside of the individual logos or something specific to the business itself, I'm open to all you. What
Well,
are we
you
talking
guys
about
are
in
smarter
terms of
than
price?
us. No, excuse me. if I was making the money these companies were getting to decide these things, I could come up with, you're gonna ask a group of, we'll think, and I guarantee you, I'll make this, well, you're right, we'll come up with better ideas, but what I'm saying is, you're gonna sit here now and ask volunteers to do that, when you have the MTA, for this many years, could not come up with any improvements in all the.
What I'm asking you, hang on a second, it's just
Sure.
that this is supposed to be a productive two-way dialogue, right? Or is it just, a bitch session, for lack of a better word? Because unless you are bringing answers to the table or solutions to the table, how are you helping move the needle?
Well,
That's all I'm asking.
Here's the
Move the
situation.
needle, I mean, I would argue that if we hadn't started asking the things we were asking, I don't know if there would have been anything. Our job is to advocate.
Right.
You could call it, was it bitch? Was that what I heard? I don't know. Okay, bitching. Well, if I don't mind bitching on behalf of my community,
Right.
because I call that advocacy. We'll bring solutions to the table, but I'm just saying, you should have sent us a memo 8 years ago telling us, hey, what was your involvement in phase one? You could have reached out and given us some feedback. You were involved in
Yeah.
phase one, right? Sure. So if you guys needed our help, should have sent to us. But look, we don't know what money you have. We don't know anything. So now you're just gonna sit here really, and tell me that we should be giving you
I didn't say
solutions.
it's your job. I asked
Well, you
if
said I'm
had-
bitching. I am
I
bitching,
asked if you
and I'll
had.
keep bitching.
To this point, we know that businesses from phase one went down 50 to 70%. We know that, right? We know that, because most, I think we read,
There's some,
we'll put a sentence here. But for the most part, the businesses that stayed in business, because a lot of them went out of business, right? So, I mean, definitely there's an effect to it, right? Because a lot of businesses in the Upper East Side went out of business. Okay. So we can't debate that part, right? There's an effect to a local business. We spoke to that donut place who opened just recently, and they were like, if we knew this was coming. Now, we also understand that the DOT decided to ramp things up from 0 to 100 to pressure the federal government. We understand this part as well. Because honestly, it was very, very quiet for a very long time. And all of a sudden, you guys started working
Oh, the MTA.
at MTA. I'm sorry, MTA, not DOT. So you guys started working 1,000% over, right? Because we were meeting and not much was happening. And all of a sudden, it just started happening. So we're playing catch up. We did bring there are a couple nonprofits we'd like you to speak to.
Yeah.
UMES, Cevitas, these are businesses they're supposed to help. I mean, they help Cevitas, Upper East Side, East Harlem. UMES does East Harlem, West Harlem.
Research, if you have the contacts and want to make the introduction.
And that way you can figure this thing out before going to a business and saying, hey, like this grant is there, but they have grants and they should be concentrating these grants on these businesses because these businesses are being highly affected by this. Like there's no other way. Most of these businesses in East Harlem, people park in front of them, shoot inside, shoot out. That's impossible now, right? You just can't do that. You have to like park around the corner. So that's where the effect to that business comes into place. And these businesses were struggling prior to you coming. Now you being there is even more disruptive. So that's why we're pushing because we're hearing it. We're hearing them like, I don't know how I'm going to be there. I don't know how I'm going to pay rent. And it's very disheartening. Nelsa, Rosa, and then we'll go down the table.
I just have a quick question. I went to, this sounds like it's self-serving, but it really isn't. I went to my tax preparer last month and I noticed that his gate was gone, right? And so I said to him, what happened to your gate? And then he said that because of machinery, his gate was removed. So I don't know, I mean, there's still machinery there in front. So I was just curious if one, is that a thing? So I can double check with him to make sure I didn't miss anything. And two, if that is so, what is like basically the time frame? Like, would it be like months away? Because I noticed that awnings were still left. It would seem like other businesses have a gate, but I don't know what type of gate he has, and his window is just like
Sure.
exposed.
So it's on a case by case basis. There's two instances in which the project may require a gate to be removed or personal property to be removed. We need to get close enough to the building or a piece of machinery is too big to fit underneath an awning. So then we will proactively remove it. In some instances, maybe an excavator backed into it or damaged it in some way, so we took it off. But we're gonna replace those, whether it was an unintentional damage or proactively removed, we'll be replacing that. For the
Yeah, I
business.
think I got the sense it was proactively removed because the machinery might have been bigger. And so I think they were told, I guess to prevent
Yep.
damage or stuff, but I wasn't clear. So I was just curious since you mentioned about.
No, it's a good point.
Many of those are being removed, so that way we can actually get into the element.
Okay,
So the awnings, the gates, we've actually worked with the property owner and the business owner to get access agreements that are signed between us and the landlord and the actual tenant to actually be able to remove some of those.
because when I asked him, I said, and he says, well, I don't know when they're gonna come back, so I didn't get that sense from him, like, I don't know if it was just out of store. So when I see him again, I'll.
You've been communicating with them, right? I mean.
Yeah,
in terms of-
the tax accountant is within the underpinning on secondary normal income tax.
Yeah, that's Rachi, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, I was
Okay,
thinking, yeah.
all right.
And I think, getting ahead of it too, I think the city's even requiring that some of these businesses actually change their gates out now. So now these gates coming down and modifying them for the future is something that they can hopefully get ahead of too.
Thank you.
Rosa?
Yeah, my concern, I remember being here, I don't know if it was last month or the month before when you presented with regards to the M15 bus. And you said that it wasn't going to be like affected. So it's lower for sure, and I think it's because of a lot of construction done, right? But I don't know, like there's like so much stuff like everywhere, not just like one side, it's also to the other side, is like all Second Avenue. My question is about 109th, 110th, I think that there's a lot of like heavy traffic there, specifically because like she just was showing me that, but all the schools are there. And I wanted to know, like, have you guys maybe spoken to the principals in those schools to see maybe a different solution? Because the M15 is getting affected by all of that. And sorry, garbage, smoking and dust. It's literally everywhere where you guys are. I understand that maybe you guys may be more conscious and not smoke near the school areas, like so like all your workers that, and maybe not throw things, when you guys are like eating and just for the garbage, because I have seen it. I have not taken pictures of, because I just wanted to let you know and tell everyone your team to not be disgusting, especially, this is our neighborhood. We want to keep it clean. And that's, that happens with construction, so I don't know what else to say.
Well, it shouldn't happen because they have garbage receptacles inside the work zone in order to put their own lunch stuff, their garbage and stuff in, so that should not be happening. I'm happy to elevate that to the contracting team. Matt's sitting here with me and he likes nothing more than to yell at the contractors, so we will make sure, we'll make sure that we bring that up in the next project progress meeting, that they need to be mindful of the issues that they bring, the quality of life issues that not only the construction creates, but the individual workers create from the smoking, from the garbage, from, loud talking. With regard to the traffic, it is, certainly worse between 108 and 110 because of the queuing in the school and the school buses going to the school. We recently had a conversation with DOT about that last week, because of the fact that some of this is enforcement issues, right? Sometimes the buses double park. This was happening before the construction was even there. Sometimes the buses lay up and wait, and they drop the kids off in the morning and then they pull over and wait till they gotta pick those kids up. So there's a whole bunch of things in play there. So we are talking with DOT about it. We're talking with NYPD about it from an enforcement standpoint. And then obviously, when we have a weekly coordination meeting with DOT, and if the situation gets it's critical enough in terms of the backups, then DOT is going to require that we revisit and take a look at it and how we restage things if traffic is being that negatively impacted. But it is something that's on everybody's radar because obviously Second Avenue is a very busy thoroughfare.
Joe, have you spoken to that school? Because I understand that they have children with
Yep.
special needs, but they're staging like 2-3 hours ahead of kids being released.
Yeah,
Like,
I know
they're sitting
Michelle and
there.
Hector have spoken with the school on a couple of occasions now because there is a pickup and drop off area specifically for the District 75 special needs school at Port Richards Playground, just south of 108th Street. So that's the dedicated spot for them, for the busing for the District 75 students. Whereas a lot of the other buses go on 109th. And that's because of the ADA accessible door, in the alleyway there. But we do speak with the school because again, it's a messaging issue too with the schools to let the bus drivers know that, and like I said, some of it's not to dismiss the extra that the construction adds to the equation, but some of it, we witnessed it, we knew it was an issue coming in, that it was gonna be an issue.
The pickups for the kids and the drop-offs, I heard that, some of the schools, requested that they close 109th between Second and Third in the mornings during, drop-off and later in the pickup, during pickup, and I believe that was CAC with the schools, and there was some discussion there, and that CAC was gonna go advocate for that, then ask the schools for a letter to request that shutdown. Have you heard anything about that? Because they felt that it was not safe.
We're still waiting on a letter from school.
Why does the school need a letter of support if they asked you guys for this? And why is it taking, I heard it's been weeks. Is the school just lagging on submitting this letter?
From which principle? Because there's a couple of principles in that.
I heard that all but one didn't want to do it.
Right, and that's the reason why they, that, the talent.
Oh, Texas,
Yeah.
oh, Texas.
So, yeah, because he has parents who come and drop their kids
I know.
off in their private cars, they don't
I know.
take the school bus. So,
They're the ones that have to be far.
right, so that was the problem with closing the street down, was that how would we allow the traffic and coordinate all?
Typically, what happens is when somebody requests something, even when our contractor wants to close down the street, typically DOT will turn around and say to us, do you have, a letter of no opposition? They're not even looking for a letter of approval, but they want to make sure that the community is not opposed to it. Well, and they'll ask us to even come to you guys at the community board and get a letter from you all. Again, not saying you endorse it or condone it or approve it, but just that you don't oppose it, that it's not gonna be a significant enough impact that it's gonna cause opposition. So we haven't gotten to that point yet because we don't have the letter to help us make the case.
Because they could control the people coming in. This happens, which drives me crazy, but there's a school that does this up here on 126th Street. And they have it closed, but they control the entrance. They have people there, so they allow the parents that are dropping off to come in with their cars. And they've self-made little plaques that they put in the front. So the color is identifiable and the person lets them in and kind of
That must be an agreement between DOE and DOT. DOT.
No, it's a school themselves that.
Right, but I don't think they would have, and again, I'm speaking out of school.
No.
And I don't think they would have the authority to close the streets for fear of fine or penalty unless DOT approved it.
Correct. No, I'm just saying in terms of how I've seen another school do it.
I'm just sorry, Rosa, no, you're right about that, the letter, but if there's one, how many schools are in that building?
There is 1, 2, 3.
3, so one is holding it up. The other 2 could still write letters without having to have the third one on board. They
Yeah,
usually.
but they don't want a letter of opposition, so if that school does a letter of opposition, that would contradict.
That would stop.
Well, it doesn't necessarily stop you. You can oppose something and it still happens. I mean, at what point are they gonna decide? I mean, that's just my advice. No, but that's not really their call to make. They'll be talking to schools.
Oh, I can get
That's why I'm
the
talking to
school letter of.
Right.
Okay.
And then my other thing, just to the garbage point you brought up, I would start with the buildings you guys have acquired. I brought it up last time, the building between 116 and 117. There's garbage there. There were rat traps sitting in the middle. Now they're gone. The doors to the building it's a mess of it. That's the one with the dead end where you gotta walk back out. I don't know if you guys have people that go routinely and sweep and stuff, because I see the same garbage there and in front of some of the other properties.
I would have got a ticket if that was my building.
Yeah.
Right, well, and again, this has come up before, and I know we flagged it last time, and it was addressed, well, that's not you, it's your C1.
They know.
Too.
They would.
From the C1 standpoint too.
They
On
give
our
me-
GNI walks, make sure that we identify.
There's like a plate from the church and I'll get a ticket. So imagine it's a significant amount of garbage, particularly in that block, 116, 117.
Right, and I know there's also an issue that we have in north on the west side where there's a clinic. We're not even there yet, but there's a vacant tree pit there that I need to speak to DSNY, because we're eventually gonna get there and it's gonna be a problem. If there's stagnant water, there's garbage, etc. So I'm coordinating with DSNY to do some additional enforcement.
Leslie and then Candy. No, right back. I gotta say good night to my girl.
Okay, Joe, so the school bus issue, I took this picture this morning, the purple.
Oh, her voice, and I'm like, I know that.
The kids on the bus are talking.
This is right on the west side of Second Avenue, 108th Street, and he's blocking, literally blocking the temporary walkway of people to come south on Second Avenue. And I looked at him and it's like, really? You're gonna sit here? And he looked at me like, and? You know, the traffic agent didn't say anything. And then I took another picture of your employers. They were standing on the sidewalk, just ignoring me, and they was fine. They're right here having a conversation, and one of them this is their car that's parked there. So now they're still impeding traffic coming down south on Second Avenue.
Can you send me, well, because it's got the license plate, which
Oh,
is a big
yeah.
help, because then, and Matt likes calling it tow truck on license plates.
I know, I
So
know.
please send me the
Also,
picture of the license.
when
There
you-
were a lot more than that. I walked it today, and they're
Yeah.
blocking pumps.
Oh, don't tell me on the high.
There's a roll of them,
Pictures with the license plates, and we can identify them as being contractor vehicles. Matt has the project has no problem. We have said this, again, you know, this is bad behavior. If in fact, again, I don't wanna say it's bad behavior in our contractors, presumably it is, or at least some of them are our contractors, may not be all. But when it is, we are more than a vest on a dashboard is not a get out of jail free.
Oh, they have it
If
all the time.
anything, you are telling on yourself, in my opinion, because I will go to PD and say, take it and tow that car at the owner's expense.
So this is, you said signage about the blue and the yellow. This is right outside the school. There's no fencing there. There's no signage there. It's very dangerous when the bus comes and it exhausts all that dust, and all the little kids are walking by going to school.
Well, that's because it's all coming down. It's in the
What,
process
this
of
is coming down? So what about in front of?
There was signage, I mean, there was fences there previously.
So what about the signage in front of my businesses on Franklin Plaza property? Then I have the other one, I love this one. So you have the signage here of all the businesses turning down 109 from Second Avenue, all the businesses that are from 109 to 110. But if you look on top, it looks like there's a rent strike, because all they have is bed sheets on top of all the signs of all their different businesses that are still open.
Yep.
Those signages were never posted. It's
So-
for the little.
Well, so those are the signs that the contractor, you know, got us trying to get in front of and get out there.
It was done a long time ago. I see all the other signages from 116 to 120. They look nice.
But
and pretty.
those awning signs there are the ones that we met with the owners and we showed you some of the designs that we talked to. Those are supposed to be delivered this week.
The white
This
ones, you
week.
talking about the white ones?
Yeah.
That's,
No, the white one's like a rent strike.
Right,
But he has little blue signage there with all the businesses.
well, I think they're gonna bring those now.
But now, after the fact, I mean, this was a year
Well,
ago that they came.
but it-
We were saying that in the beginning of the meeting. Let me bring this back. We'll walk and everything. I hear you, but I'm gonna say this again. I walked today and I'll send you the pictures. I took them. 4 cars with the construction vest right up and down blocking pumps. You guys need to be responsible for that. You're saying it. How many cars are being ticketed? How many have been towed? It's not our job to go out there and do your job, but
You're an extra set of eyes.
right, but what I'm saying is, it's not one car tucked away. It is, like you just said, they're not even discreet about it. So the fact that we have to send you pictures or tell you about it tells me that you guys aren't really walking and looking. Because you just walk at any time of the day, it's happening. There are 4 or 5 cars in a row blocking pumps,
Other parking, yeah.
blocking pumps. That's, I believe now actually a criminal summons, because there've been times where FDNY trucks could not get to the pump and the car can be put out. So it's getting borderline insane. I don't care, oh, they took a parking spot here or there. Now you're blocking fire hydrants. There's a total lack of, they must be, it makes me wonder, what are they being told they can get away with on these jobs?
Primarily
Let me-
also Matt and Joe,
Look,
sorry to butt in, but
hydrants.
they're taking up a lane also. They're parking on Second Avenue, particularly like that 108, 106.
No,
So
this is-
it's already a tight spot because of what's happening. And I understand it's in close proximity to where they're working. But like, we gotta figure out a way to where we can keep their cars, because they're taking now another lane that could have been used by people that are trying to get around all these things.
Let me, if I could just give a little feedback on some of the things since we were here last time, right? Even myself. So with the parking, I've given the team the complete authorization to tow cars. We've actually already started towing cars. We've actually even went back and looked at some of the past towing expenses. We've spent over $50,000 in towing cars since C1 has actually started. So that's number one. Number two, I walked with the owners of CAC and our contract too. We're doing that every Monday morning to walk as a good neighbor initiative with the owners of the contractors that are out there. And I am personally taking photos, walking up key plans and sending them to the owners and also giving them non-conformance reports to make sure that they hear it.
Okay.
The other side of it is I've also told the C2 contractor to get their own small 10-yard containers. And if they see something on the side of the street, please pick it up. I don't care whose trash it is, even to the extent that if it's garbage because the garbage company, DSENY, and the Department of Sanitation don't know where to pick up the garbage, it's piling up on the corner, I don't care, pick it up, put it in a container, get it out of here. I've even asked them to come around periodically with a 20-yard trash compactor and just drive up and down the neighborhood, and if they see something, pick it up and get it out of here. We're not in the garbage business, but we're trying to do what we can to pick it up. The other side of it is with the signage, we've actually created a key plan of all the signs of all the areas that need to be improved, right? And we could have got ahead of it on C1. We're out there now and we're walking it. I'm taking photos myself and walking my key plans and getting it all to the contractors. So that's the garbage. Smoking I hadn't seen. I am out there at 125th Street walking with the teams 2-3 times a week. So I'm in it. I have, I think some of the success that I've had is probably the OCD in me. So I have a reputation of running a tight job. I hear you, I see it, I'm out there. I've got the photos and the pictures and I'm on it. I'm trying as hard as I can to put as much pressure on these project teams to keep it as tight as possible.
Thank you.
So there are some things, I know it probably hasn't moved as quickly as you wanted on some of these things, but hear it from the team. I am screaming at them to try and keep it as tight as possible and as clean as possible.
Thank you.
So now, since I was interrupted,
Did she give her question already? How many
You
questions
got
are
a
there?
bunch, but okay.
I had a bunch, but you kept cutting me off, so. On 108th Street, you closed off the parking lot on the west side of 108th Street to the Franklin Plaza residents. In that interim, you have damaged the foundation of one of the walls, one of the retaining walls that we have there. And I have the pictures to show because the gate doesn't close and the beam there is cracked.
Oh, that's what
Really
you sent me. Okay. You
So-
sent me, I didn't know what it was.
Two things on that. The gate was actually damaged by a Franklin Plaza resident who hit the post. That wasn't the project.
No, I'm talking right, it's in the same proximity.
No, understood, but the gate itself, the post was damaged, was hit by a Franklin Plaza resident, and Franklin Plaza restored that. In the process of restoring that, they identified that the wires to that gate were damaged by the work, and our contractor is paying for that. This is gonna restore.
And this one too, this ledge here?
Well, I assume it's all part of that
No.
same work.
No.
It's in front of the gate. Is it in front of the gate?
I'll show you where the gate is at. This is the gate,
Right.
this is, yeah,
So was a Franklin Plaza resident?
there's the gate.
That hit.
No, it's an
that
employee.
hit-
It's an employee.
Oh, so you know about it?
No, but where the gate is at, is where the beam is that they cracked when they started digging right outside of the parking lot.
Allegedly.
That's what I showed you.
No, she just admitted to that.
But I think we're fixing that.
Yeah,
We're fixing that, and,
We're fixing- yeah, we're fixing the
and
wiring.
just so you know, two things too. The wiring was not in for code, and the contractor threw up a problem about it. I directed the owner of CAC to actually fix it regardless. So they're fixing. So
Candy and then.
they are doing that, and the other thing I would just say, well,
I see your
I
hand.
forgot,
Yeah.
is with all the,
Can't even wait.
the PD traffic and pedestrian enforcement agents, Yuki and the team can advocate. I got into an argument with their superintendents out there because they are sitting in the cars and they're not actually on the corners.
Right.
So I've actually started taking badge numbers and going back to PD and told them to get out there. And to the extent that I actually saw somebody trying to get across the intersection and personally helped that lady get across the intersection because the PD person was. So I'm out. I hear you and I am out there and I am screaming at the police myself.
Yeah, I would hate for one of my elderly residents that take like 20 minutes just to cross,
Mhm.
to get hit by one of these anxious drivers.
Yeah.
Non-bites.
We need to get one of those machines that picks them up.
I want
Same
the
with
things that
Do you
come
have
up
something else? We
and
gotta,
then, no.
we have like,
We got other things. to
Yeah.
talk about.
are you good?
I
Or-
need my,
I'm
they're
done with
talking
that.
about, they were
And-
talking about the,
But I
signage.
just sent you the pictures of what I got.
And after last month meeting, I was out there the next day with the team screaming at everybody. So just,
I think I met you out there one day.
She probably heard you screaming. Candy, you had a question?
No, it was just, I'm hearing them talking about the signage. I just wanted to make sure, I'm not sure if I didn't hear it right. Are you working with the, storefront owners to do the same, the way they want it, not the way?
For the
it's-
awnings, yes. And then we're gonna see what we can do about implementing something similar on the street side banners on the work zones as we move forward.
You know, it'd be nice, like QR codes, because people sometimes can
It's funny,
scan.
because we get mixed reaction to it. It's
I
like,
do,
you know,
I have the
it-
same experience.
Yeah, so some people are advocates for them, and some people are like, you do realize not everybody's.
I hated them at first, but now I've been kind of more open to them. Like,
We get mixed reaction.
Yeah, same. We talked about the deliveries tomorrow, the bulk of these. You got about 2/3 outstanding. Will you send to the team here once these banners?
Yeah,
and
if they go up, we
everything
can
are on?
send updates, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll walk.
Oh, yeah, no, we'll walk to see it, but we want to get notifications ASAP as soon as they're live.
I
Send it.
walk every day.
Yeah, so, well, that's how we stay there. But yeah, thank you. And we hope to have that executed and completed by when?
I think all of them are expected to be delivered by next week between the two contracts, right, that we have in the process right now.
So, but installed, yeah, thank you.
Right, so I mean, it depends, if it gets delivered on a Friday, it might not go up till the following Monday, but if it's delivered on a Monday, it'll
But
be
it says,
installed by that week.
yeah, so just to be clear, because it says expected to, I'm being pedantic here, but 5/27, that's tomorrow.
Right, but there are some that I think say next week.
Yeah,
No, they all
Delivery.
say.
Now, 117, 118 says they have expected, they don't have an exact date, so.
it says
15,
expected delivery is 5.
But the majority says 5/27. Can bring us back.
Yeah, so, all right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
David. Wendy, did you say?
I'm just, the installation part, so I'm just trying to visual, right? So they come in about a week's time, up.
It takes about a week to 10 days to get them fabricated and delivered, something, you know, and then it goes up almost instantaneously, depending on how many come in. Obviously, if we're putting up 10 on a block, you know, the 9th or 10th may not get up till the following day, but, you know, it depends
So
on.
by next Friday, we should expect.
Everything that comes in this week, everything should be up by next Friday, no question.
So it's like 24, 48 hours roughly for installation. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to the next lighting. Signage took a lot longer, we kind of like zigzagged a little bit to garbage and everything else. No, okay, it's still, we're doing good, we still got a couple of little things to go through. You were up to lighting,
Wait, yeah. so
that's where we were.
Well, yeah, one more back, no?
There it is.
Yeah, so again, not just the signage, but the quality of life issues. Some of this stuff has been talked about already with the garbage. This is specific to lighting and access. But you know, you all brought to our attention the concerns about the lighting on 117 to 118. That was put up the very same week, if not the beginning of the following week, right? Alejandra, you guys put that up pretty quickly. You know, we've attempted, I know we've gone back and forth on this, the entryway from 106 or between 106th and 107th on the west side of Second Avenue is for those businesses that are on the northwest corner of 106th and Second. There was some concern that folks were finding themselves in that passageway with they thought it was a pass through, and it's not. It's specific for entrance and access to those businesses to make sure that we maintain access. So we put up signs that, you know, indicate no exit or for businesses only, you know, so that hopefully folks don't find themselves turned around on those areas that don't have, you know, a direct pass through. You know, and then you see some of the signage where we're trying to encourage folks not to park where we've established temporary bus parking areas, or pickup or drop off areas, so that folks, you know, so we're, you know, we're trying to find a happy medium between getting up enough signage to accomplish all of the needs and indicate everything that needs to be indicated without it being, you know, unsightly as well.
Did you put any lights up on the 105th Street, going west from, Second Avenue? Cause it became, you have a side construction there that you're doing.
Between second and third.
Second
Yeah,
and
I
third.
know that was identified.
And it's a very dark area.
It has, is it order?
Wait, second and third, we took that MP2 down, on 106 between second.
No, 105th. Between
105th.
second and third.
Cause it's extremely dark in that area. We had some residents giving, so what they'll do is they'll cross the street, walk around it and then cross back. They don't wanna go through there. Cause in the middle of it, there's like a little entrance, it's like a little T kind of section there. We took a picture there, we sent it to you. But it is,
Yeah, I'll follow.
an issue for like a public safety position, right? And we wanna make sure that residents are comfortable walking in their own streets.
Absolutely.
Particularly now that as summer comes in, which is beautiful
People
weather,
are later.
not just that, the trees and leaves give us a huge issue with lighting. We have a significant issue with lighting, which we're addressing with DOT. We've been able to get them to install like halfway, an extra lighting pole, because as the trees completely bloom, they block the lighting, and then the streets become significantly darker during the summer, which is typically when you need them more because more people are outside. So that's just something that, but of course, as your construction is taking place, unfortunately, everything involves you now.
Yeah.
So we just, you know.
So you go back to your office tomorrow, you make a phone call, can that be done by Thursday?
Well, we have to identify, so there's DOT lighting standards which dictate what is low or not low lighting, and maybe a perceived issue because for whatever reason, maybe now there's more trees in the area, or maybe it is the work zone that's blocking light from the other street. So I need to find out where we stand on the investigation into that lighting and why it's low, or if it is in fact low. And if it's low because of something we did, whether we moved a street pole 5 feet down the block, or our work zone is blocking the light being thrown from the other side of the street, then we'll install additional light to help supplement that. But I have to understand what's the root cause of the issue first.
Joe, can you get back to them by
Yeah.
tomorrow?
Next slide, Angel.
But what about the no parking spot? You gonna make a project? You guys go to school bus down there?
I don't know, is that requested?
They would like to leave, so they didn't park
It's
there.
not parking there anyway, isn't it, like in the street? It's in the street, they couldn't
Is it
park there.
visible that anybody can see that?
No, it's like in the, like, I don't think people are allowed to park. We talking about where the ADA entrance is? They're not supposed to park there.
Yeah, they still do, I got
It's
pictures.
a street, I know, but it's like a street. It's like me parking on 116th Street, like just, well, people double park, but right now the problem is double parking there causes everything to go to one lane.
Yeah.
And then there's work on both sides, which can change even further. This particular slide is just a construction update. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we want to tackle issues. So this is just, the work that's going on. All of the work for contract 1 is supposed to be wrapped up by Q1 of next year. But as I say, between now and Q1 of next year, they're slowly going to be sort of backing out of the room and reducing footprints. There's a slide on that in a little bit where we're, taking away some of the impacts. Next slide.
I just want to also add to, on one of those things, there was a comment about the fire hydrants and folks parking with them being blocked. I personally last, 2 weeks ago went to the chief of FDNY for northern Manhattan, all the Italian chiefs in the local houses, and we actually personally went around and inspected every single fire hydrant to make sure they're working, and that they're clear and visible for FDNY to get them. So just, we also made sure that there's red lights and the signage for FDNY to get to every fire hydrant and that they are all around. So just, I heard that before, that there was some concern with the hydrants. There shouldn't be.
I got a picture of that one too.
Go ahead.
How often are you, checking your, supplemental environmental assessment from 2004 to 2018 version? I'm just asking because I don't want to go too off topic, but like wayfinding for traffic patterns, and I read in it that there was supposed to be a task force created for the traffic decisions that are made that was supposed to meet with the community boards. But I asked Jose, because he was public safety chair, if those meetings happened before traffic pattern decisions were made, and he doesn't recall those happening. And then are all the vehicles that the contractor is using, all the trucks and everything, are they fitting whatever it is, the tier 3 requirements and built after a certain year with the scrubbers and it's all in the assessment. I'm bringing those up to just know how aligned are you guys with the assessments that were done, for this project? Because, like I said, he doesn't recall ever having that meeting about anything that had to do with traffic routing or, where lanes are gonna be closed.
So with regard to the vehicles and the approvals and the authorization of the vehicles, they're all, I don't know if James wants to weigh in on anything environmental, but they're all, what's the tier 4? Yeah.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay, and the traffic thing?
Traffic thing, I'm not sure if they're talking about in that particular document about a task force, you say it's with the community board?
It's supposed to meet with, it says the interagency traffic management task force would also consult with local community boards. The plan would typically include a comprehensive traffic monitoring program to evaluate traffic conditions continually so that traffic detours and mitigation measures could respond as effectively as possible to traffic patterns as they change.
So we have an interagency working group where we go through with the agencies having jurisdiction, like for instance, on those traffic patterns, that would be DOT. Or if it was Con Edison, or if it was Verizon, or whoever, we have those meetings internally. And I don't know, other than this forum, if we were to invite them here to have that, if. it was-
Public safety.
Yeah, or public safety.
Yeah, I mean, Jose's the only, that's one that you only gotta really talk to him there.
I think the short answer to your question is yes, we're following it, because even the NEPA and the environmental assessment, even to the extent the hours that we're working, we're reporting to the federal government that even our drilling operations that we're doing beyond working hours is within guidelines of the environmental assessment. So
Okay.
we're on it.
Okay.
We had two questions from the public I'd like to address. We have Laura De Jesus and Mark and Maggie McDermott. Let me see which Laura.
Hello.
You hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Ken, you had a question or comment?
Yes, hi all. So mostly like a comment and maybe just something for the record, a question to the MTA, because I was actually trying to find the minutes from, I believe, September of 2018 when the MTA shared about the supplemental assessment. And I just like my comment, I guess, I don't really like to be like, I told you so, but I have been literally saying to the MTA, and I know you have heard me say this, I forget the gentleman's name. I've always asked,
It's Joe.
Joe.
yes, hello. I've asked over and over, why wasn't there another environmental impact study done? And why was there only a supplemental assessment? And I think what we're hearing here and what we're seeing now, fast forward, almost a decade from when I was making this a big concern about the environment in this community changing, especially with rezoning, everything flooding. There's so much things that was different from 2004, and the MTA should have considered all of that. And because you could see it now because of rezoning in this community, we have all this other construction going up. We got massive buildings going up. So not only are we dealing with the construction and the environmental issues that the MTA is creating, but also with all this development and then the loss of parking, it is just madness. You can't walk. People with physical disabilities have challenges. As it was mentioned by Ms. Cologne, Franken Plaza's property, damages to our parking lot. I see some construction workers occasionally park in some of the spaces here in our lot. I also have questions that, I'll leave to Franken Plaza, but for Leslie, what is we're losing property. So what do we get as shareholders where now we're losing property as far as because the entrance and who's going to maintain that? And I just want to hear from the MTA because I can't find the minutes. Can you just share here for the record why the MTA did not do a new environmental impact study?
So there was a supplemental environmental
I know
impact
there was a
study.
supplemental assessment and it showed that there was no major new impacts, right? But there's clearly showing there is, especially with rezoning and environmental. So I don't know how that supplemental is. I just want to know, 2004 does not look like when you guys started in the 2020s. And so I just want to hear why not do an environmental impact study?
So what I was about to say was there was one done that was in 2004, and that served as the baseline for a supplemental impact study, which then used that baseline and then took the existing conditions. I want to go back and double check. James, I know you weren't around then, and I don't think anybody here was around then, but I believe it was in 2018 was when the supplemental environmental
Yes.
impact study was done.
July, yeah.
And it investigated the conditions at that time, prior to the award of the first contract. And things have continued to change over time. So, we continue to, our best practices, the environmental best practice that we have in place, take all of that into consideration already. And the things like the air quality monitoring, the vibration, the noise mitigation, all of those come from federal guidance and state guidance, depending on the agency having jurisdiction. So all that's in place. That doesn't go away. That hasn't changed because of any change in development here inside of East Harlem. But I don't know, if the question is, why aren't we doing another one today? I'd have to
I
talk
think
to
it
my-
should have done, I just wanted, because I know I asked this at the meeting in September of 2018 at the African, it was on the Fifth Avenue location. I remember it clearly, but I can't find the minutes. So I just wanted to hear why there wasn't one done before starting the project. I understand you did a supplemental assessment, but again, I think right now, as we fast forward, it's showing that you probably should have done another environmental impact study because you're seeing the significant changes from your 2004 on what we're having, the schools, all of this. If you knew all of that information, you would have already had a plan for all this. Like I've mentioned before, and I will ask my final question and end here, close. But this is the only phase from what I understand that impacts so much. 3 NYCHA developments, Mitchell Lamas, schools, on top of small businesses, and indirectly a little bit of public hospital because it's still construction literally everywhere. And I've asked Hector, our community, I've asked a few times, I would like to see an air quality report before the project started and one after. And I don't know if the board has one, but I would like to see the reports that have been ran for the last year on the air quality, because again, something I stressed, we all know we have the largest, highest asthma rate, and all of this boom, boom between the MTA and then all the big, massive rezoning buildings going up. My sinuses and my lungs have never felt so like the way they feel now. I'm coughing, and when I blow my nose and blowing up brown stuff. And it's not something I've ever experienced in the 45
Laura,
years that I've lived.
Laura, and I
just want to know.
appreciate you. I'm
it's
gonna
a-
have to,
just if
I
I
understand,
question
and I
on the
appreciate
reports.
you, and you bring up great points. I think Joe's answered them to the best of his ability, but I need
Yes.
to
Can we
continue
get the
to move on.
reports?
Thank
That
you.
was my question. Just
We-
can
I
get the
will,
reports.
we'll follow up on it. Thank you, Laura. Maggie McDermott?
Hi, everybody. You hear me? Hi,
I
good
do
evening,
now.
everyone. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up real quickly, but of course, I took notes and I wanted to emphasize some things that I notice on a daily basis to Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Maggie, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you. The west side of 107th to 109th Street, extremely unkept. There's litter, garbage everywhere. We're still forced, pedestrians, to walk on the basement grates. I can't tell you how nerve-wracking that is. To walk on these ancient, some of them are like really, really old and they move when you walk on them. It doesn't feel good and somebody's going to get hurt. One of those basement grates is going to cave in with somebody on it. At night, it's dark and poorly lit. That's 107th to 109th on the west side of 2nd Avenue. East side, 117th to 116th Street on the east side of the street. Tons of garbage, poorly lit. The netting obstructs It obstructs pedestrians' view. Now you have Corsi House right there. That's a building filled with seniors only. You know, I'm highly, highly concerned. A lot of them have severe mobility issues, and that pathway, even though it's the best pathway of all of them, I have to say, it's not, it's not a safe pathway for the elders, I don't think. And I, you know, would ask you if you could please, please take a walk through there yourself and see what I'm talking about. At night, it's really poorly lit, and the netting from top to bottom, just like it was on 106th Street when it was there, on 106th and 2nd near Franklin Plaza, is the same type of thing, is too much. You can't see the street. If something's happening inside that netting, God
Okay.
forbid, because the person's not gonna get any help.
Yeah, great points, Maggie. I appreciate it, and we'll definitely take a look at most of that. I think all of it, but I think, Alejandro, didn't we just address this week the fence wrap at 116? Thought we removed a couple panels of fence wrap because of the line of sight issue. And I don't know if it's a specific 115th. Okay, so we'll take a look at 116 as well.
Thank you, and then I'm gonna wrap it up, but I need to mention 119th. So now I'm on the west side, the northwest side of the street. 119th Street to 118th Street's unbearable. It is pitch black. Once that barber shop closes, the donut shop is already low lighting. You know, that's the
Right.
ambiance of the place.
Actually, I think they just installed lights there. We haven't
Oh,
seen it yet at
okay.
night, but we saw the
Okay.
pictures.
Okay,
So
but I have to
we'll-
say, it is very dangerous. It's very dangerous.
We're
Okay.
gonna follow up to make sure that the lights, but I think that's the lights
Add a
showed
couple
us.
things to those
Please.
points, too. On the
Okay, because I'm
gradings-
gonna be on it like white on rice too, for what it's worth, because it's just not, it's putting us in dangerous way. And, you know, I know Joe doesn't want that. I know nobody wants that. So, okay,
Thank you, Maggie.
On the
Thank you.
gratings and those hatch doors, those are anticipated to be removed and come out within the next 2 to 3 weeks. On the west side, we're gonna start underpinning and that sidewalk restoration to be able to pull those hatches out, so you won't have to walk on those anymore. So
Oh,
give us a
that's
little bit of
good.
time, in a
Okay.
couple weeks, those will be out, and the contractor will be there with some more permanent plates and some road decking to be able to do the underpinning and the building stabilization work. For the Corsi House, there's, there is additional barricades there because environmentally, there is just some abatement work that's happening, and that's a requirement to enclose it. So after that work is done, that'll come down, and that NPT and those barricades will open up a little bit, and the netting will give you a better line of sight. On the third one with the lighting, we directed the contractor to install some additional lighting. It's in one of the photos. I haven't seen it at night, but when I leave here tonight on my way back up to my field office at 125th Street, I'll personally walk it myself to see if the lighting is there.
To one of her points on 109th Street, west side, the grocery store, and about, he either keeps his gates open that go to his basement, or he puts a cone on them. A lot of these, I mean, I used to have one of them, and I didn't want people stepping on them either, because they're just not in the best situation. But it may be in, particularly since you're doing construction and you have to walk on that grate, or it's a very, very small space to walk around it. If you could look at that, and if you have to replace it, the one that goes to his basement, the ones that
So
open.
between 109 and 110, that area is split into two or pedestrian walkways.
It's an
there's
outside and an
protected- yeah,
inside. I'm talking about the
the
inside,
inside.
at the very corner, the deli.
Yeah.
I think it's called Annabelle's Deli.
I got a picture.
There, it gets very narrow, and his grate is at least half of the walkway.
Yeah.
But sometimes he doesn't like people walking there, so he'll open it, or he'll put a cone there. Yeah,
That's the walk we're talking about.
yeah, but your picture's not, it's like the opposite. You and your pictures.
I-
Yes, but I want the grate at the corner.
Oh.
I
I
have
think-
one more very quick thing to mention, please. I got cut off. One more very quick thing. There is definitely a blatant disregard for parking rules and regulations by the construction team. I'm gonna stand by that. It's not.
Thank you,
only-
Maggie. We
no,
spoke
wait,
about that already.
I
We
know,
brought
I
it
know
up.
you did. I was on the call. I heard it, but you referred to only the downtown area, the 109th and thereabout. I want to say that it's also happening uptown, 119th, 118th, that area as well. Not
Maggie,
only
we
down.
don't have a downtown side. Just let's clear that. I
Well,
don't want
I'm-
that to be a
well,
thing.
I'm just
But
gonna
yeah, the
say-
southern part, the southern part.
Right, you referred to 107th and 109th.
Yeah, yeah. It's a bigger issue than.
I'm referring to up here, it's an issue. It's a big issue too, because even if the DEP comes to check the hydrants, that's another fine and another violation. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Maggie.
Recent budget part, I'm not sure.
All right, let's continue. We've gotten a lot done.
On this particular slide, just before we move on, the areas with polka dots or the lighter colors, obviously, the blue is where all the utility work is going on Second Avenue proper. But as you can see, the lighter areas were reduced, the sort of yellowish areas were reduced a week or so ago. And then the lighter blue areas on the northeast and southeast corners of 106th and 108th will be reduced in the next week to 2 weeks. We anticipate that one on the corner of the Franklin Plaza property at 106 to be coming down by the end of this week. And then some of them along the avenue will be starting to come down too. So again, just, for what it's worth, some of it's going to be going away and there'll be a bit of a reprieve before C3 comes in and starts taking up their own spaces. But
C3 is when we're ripping.
the center of Second.
All right, let's keep going.
So you're gonna do an environmental body as well,
We're ready,
that's
yeah.
gonna be stirring up from Franklin Plaza.
I think we're gonna get to all this. Let's let them.
This is just the work coming up for C1 in the future, which is, we pretty much talked about. Mostly the same stuff that's been going on, the underpinning and the strengthening, the utility relocation, sewer work, water main work, and then the oil-static lines, which are the insulated lines for power and electric, but that's coming up, between now and the end of the
This is
year.
when you're moving all utilities out of the way for your.
Most of it's already moved out of the way. This is, implementing new utilities.
Sure.
Next. So contract 3, just for awareness, as I said, we awarded that now and we've given them notice to proceed. The last time we were here, we had gotten the confidence from the federal government that the money was, their portion of the money was still coming. So we moved forward with this. We have met with the Franklin Plaza Associates folks, both the ownership, representation and facilities team to walk the area. First things that they're gonna be doing is looking to set up some presence in the southeast corner of 108th in the parking lot there where we've acquired property, and in the public plaza area, the plaza area on the northeast corner of 106. So the northeast portion of 106, they anticipate setting up some shop there, and on June 15th, we'll be putting in some work zones, taking away some trees, doing some soil and test pits and things like that to understand what's underneath the ground there. And then similarly in the parking lot around July 1st. We're working with management and the facilities team to set up a meeting for shareholders, similar to the one we did before contract 1, but for contract 3. Sometime in the middle of June before this, they actually put boots on the ground. So that it's primarily to address the concerns of Franklin Plaza, but that'll be open to the public.
You're still meeting with Franklin Plaza bi-weekly?
We meet with them every other week.
Nope, I'm not sitting on that one. I wasn't invited as a board member.
So contract 2, which is the uptown side of the project. That's some of the work that's going on.
Just for the boring machine to go into that.
Yeah, so
particular-
that's the bulk of the work right now has been focused between 119 and 120, where they were doing the building demolition, both approximate to PS 96, and then the 3 buildings on Second Avenue proper. In the lower right-hand corner, you can see all of the demolition completed there. So that's everything back down to the ground level and graded, not graded like cheese, but graded as in leveled. And then next slide. Some of the work coming up in the next 3 months on contract 2 will be the finalization of, any of the demo, at between 119th and 120th. It's mostly loadout, because all the demo, if I'm correct, is done, the actual physical demo, yeah. And then, great, and then, at 120th, we'll continue with the instrumentation and monitoring installation for all required buildings. Begin installation of the guide walls and the secant piles at 120th. So that's the Bellmouth area. That's what's eventually gonna be excavated to lower the tunnel boring machine into, so that it can go on its journey north and then eventually west. So if you're familiar with the 125th Street yards over at 125th and Lex, or 125th and Park, we've been doing a lot of supportive excavation or secant pile installation there. So it's similar work to what's been going on there is gonna start in this lot, so that we can eventually excavate the soft earth there, to eventually get to the hard rock and then lower the tunnel boring machine down. Over at 125th Street, we're gonna continue with
Can we pause there?
Yeah, sure.
Because we had some issues, obviously, with the school. That's been a big concern overall. With how the demolition is going, where we're at with the demolition. We also had issues with asbestos readings. Then you wanna?
Well, I look, because your presentation's here, so I know we're jumping ahead, but I'm looking at that part right now.
Or are we?
Well, but we can talk about it. At the stakeholder meeting on Friday, an employee doing the presentation confirmed each one of the exceedances was asbestos. I've asked for what that reading was, what the other two were. I spoke to the principal of PS 96 on Friday, asked if they were aware that there was an asbestos reading. They told me no. I spoke to the superintendent and called, I guess the principal must have called her. And I asked, she said she had no awareness that there was any asbestos reading. My concern is that and then the superintendent said they implored you guys to do this in the summer. I asked if she knew if this was being done when kids were at recess. She couldn't confirm one way or the other. It's been particularly windy this time of year. I just also want to note that, as far as I know, this April 28th was when, and you guys say it, when you switched to machines. And I understand that when we asked about encapsulation, the first time we asked, it was said that wasn't required. The second day, following day was all structural. And then I had raised a thing after the hand demolition takes down the first two floors and you could go to machines. I asked why you couldn't encapsulate it then. Is it more structurally stable? So I say all that to say, we had made this a big issue. We had made this a lot of noise. And I don't know if the fear really happened, but why wasn't the school told there was an asbestos reading?
So a couple things is, and then I'll actually ask James to come in as the environmental expert here. So a couple things is, you're right, we said the encapsulation wasn't required. It wasn't required. It still wasn't required on the second day. All I did was further expound upon why we weren't going to encapsulate. Besides the fact that it wasn't required, it was also better. The methodology that we chose to employ to get the building down was better, because
Better in what way?
because of fixing an outside encapsulation to that building, which was structurally unsound, could have caused it to fall and could have caused an incident.
Even after the first two, when you went to machine, it was stable enough for machines, but it wouldn't collapse?
The machines weren't it was outside the building.
The structural building was compromised from the top floor to the bottom. So the machines were.
Why didn't you just keep going by hand then?
We've switched the machine.
Why?
So we got to a point where it was safe to then go, because we are no longer above the school and gonna be impacting their vents. So then once we were below the roof line of the school, we could move to the mechanical excavation or demolition, because it's quicker and less impactful to the community, because we get in and out of there quicker.
But there is
Trade-offs, right?
well, not necessarily.
And a couple of things I do want to clear up before.
Well, no, what I'm saying is you are below the rooftop.
Yeah.
However, the kids' playground is directly behind. So what happens there is, like, even though you don't go into the vent, the issue with this particular building is goes around. The kids are playing
Right.
in that area, and that's where they spend most of their time outside during the day, and that's our concern.
You guys were, I'm sorry,
And mitigate that.
that you guys were doing construction while the kids were playing on the other side, so that is confirmed, and Christie did say that.
So a couple of things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
where-
really bad.
When we were, the roof line of the school, the ventilation systems from the school.
Doesn't go internally, I understand.
Right, but it's from you to me away. The school playground was a couple hundred yards away from the work. It was outside the 50-foot exclusionary zone that, needed to be protected to make sure that there were no issues. Secondarily, I'm not gonna tell you what you did or you didn't hear. I wasn't in the room on Friday. I was on the call, but there was no asbestos exceedance. There was an exceedance. There were exceedance for dust levels, for PM10 levels, but I don't believe, James, there was ever an exceedance for asbestos. So if you could clarify that.
We do monitor for dust and we do monitor for fibers, but it's not specific asbestos fibers.
I hear you, but you were online,
Yeah, I
you
was.
weren't in the room. I mean, we can call Carrie King right now, who's sitting next to me, and ask her if I made that up in my head. And then why wouldn't you be distinguishing what type of fibers they are? Because not all fibers are cancer causing. I've actually raised that question. When you send these reports, it just says fibers. How does anyone have any idea? There's regular insulation, which is fibers, which has not been really proven to be carcinogenic. And then there's asbestos. So why not distinguish between them?
Sure. So I showed up today because the person who spoke wasn't an environmental expert, so they clearly misspoke. When we're doing this work, we have real-time dust monitoring. That's above and beyond what the asbestos regulations require. That's the PM10. That's actively monitoring real-time for dust levels. So on April 28th, when the contractor switched from hand methods to mechanical methods to reduce the noise, to reduce the dust, we were on site. My team had people real-time looking at the monitors, and when elevated dust readings were measured, we stopped the work, we made adjustments to work practices, we reduced the dust levels. What the asbestos regulations require is that you collect these fiber samples. These samples are looked at under a microscope, and that can't be done real time. That's done at the end of the workday, goes back to a lab. So what the project did proactively is we deployed instruments on the roof of the school, in front of the school by the entrance, and one by the playground to do real-time dust monitoring. So we use those as tools to make sure that while the contractor adjusted work practices, we actively mitigated the dust.
What's your role again? I missed it.
I'm an environmental manager.
So with the MTA or third party? Third party. Okay, I mean.
I just had a question
go
though.
ahead.
What was the exceedance? What was the number that? Because I wasn't on that.
There was no specifics.
So for the fibers, it exceeds about 10% of the action level. But that action level, it's not measuring asbestos, it's measuring total fibers. So if we have, let's say it's 110%, if some fraction of that is any other type of fibers, it's very unlikely that that was asbestos fibers. It was some portion. When we had these exceedances, we were demolishing exterior walls of the building. There could have been fiberglass insulation. There could be cellulose. There's a lot of other materials that could be picked up in those samples. Some portion, we're just measuring fiber level.
And just to-
Fiberglass is like the next.
How would you know?
Well,
But-
just a point of clarification to it, or to put a finer point on what James is saying, the action level is 10%, or the alert level is 10%
110.
of the action level. And this was only 10% above the alert level.
Correct.
So it was 90% below the level with which you would have to take an action.
Right.
There was
Question
no-
though, so at the end of the day, you sent these fibers to get tested.
Correct.
So these tests are back by now. Do we know it was an asbestos issue or?
So what they do is they look at it under a microscope and they look at the shape. If there's an elongated fiber, they count. And so when they looked at it, they counted fibers, and there was a 10% elevated reading over the action level. Not what an exposure level is, as Joe was saying, exposure limit is 10 times higher than that. So.
No,
this was-
I understand that part. What I'm asking is, those tests were already conducted. So at that point, you would be able to know at a microscope level, you would be able to know what if asbestos was present or not.
It's a non-specific test, so it could measure just fibers. So it could be cellulose fibers, it could be a number of different.
But why would it be non-specific? I guess that's the question. If, let's say it was very elevated and then it's cellulose instead of asbestos, wouldn't you need to know that? Because they're not, the impact on people's health is not the same. I don't understand why there wouldn't be some a bit specificity into what these fibers are?
So this action limit is set at 1/10 of what the exposure limit is for.
So if it went up though, let's say it went way up the church, then you would do that?
If-
Because they're gonna be doing 8 blocks of asbestos abatement from 1/12 to 1/20, right? So that's gonna be a big, large scale. If there was a high reading at any point, would you then look to distinguish what was actually disturbed?
So when we have an exceedance over the action limits, they adjust work practices, they do post cleaning, they make sure that there's no exposure to the community. So they adjust the work practice. The exposure limit we're talking about is what OSHA allows for workers who are working an 8-hour day every day. So if we were 90% lower than that limit. So these were very slight readings. And the contractor used the PM10 readings throughout the day to actively adjust the work practices to make sure that they were doing whatever they can to control that dust.
Is there a way to know if it's asbestos or not asbestos? I'm not a constructor, so I was curious, like in these tests. And obviously you did one that's not specific, and I'm sure there are other tests that can be more specific. Just curiosity is, considering our concern is particularly because of its issue and close to, it's not just, it's a school, but it's also residents, but the school. At one point, brake pads were made from asbestos. So like, and they grind down. So everyone has a little bit of it, right? It's an exposure thing, but the younger you are, obviously it affects you more. Is there a test that is done for asbestos, or like a specific test? At one point, would you do that test?
For this activity, this is the sampling method that's indicated, is this, visual inspection. What would happen if you had exceedance over that action limit? You stop the work practice, you make an adjustment. So.
No, I understand that, but is there a test, is my question? A particular test to know if it was asbestos or not asbestos? That's my question.
This test that they ran is the test that you run. It is
No. I understand what they ran is what they ran. I understand. I'm asking in general, since this is your specialty. Is there a test that would test if it was asbestos? Would you normally even test if it's asbestos?
In this scenario, there's no test that's indicated for this type of activity.
So that means there was no asbestos done testing.
They wouldn't.
So there was no asbestos test.
No, they don't know.
done the-
But they don't want to
that
test for
activity was
asbestos.
done for Franklin Plaza.
So,
Wendy?
can I-
And then,
I mean, and we can go back and forth. So just out of curiosity, Joe, what is the lesson learned at this point?
Well, the lesson learned is that there was an elevated reading that got to the alert level, which then the contractor took additional means and methods to reduce the dust, which then kept the level down. So it never got anything, never got to an actionable level where we needed to take an action for, or to alert the community for, because it was only at that alert level, which tells us something's changed. It's not reacting the way we thought. It's a little bit elevated. So for instance, when they switched to the mechanical methods, they changed the amount or the frequency of the water misting, the angle of the water misting to keep the dust down. They took smaller chunks of material off the building so as not to stir up dust. So all they do in that particular instance, when they see levels climbing to the alert level, they change the actions so that it doesn't continue and become an issue.
So why wasn't this done when the kids were not in school? Like on break?
It was.
It was done when they were on break, what break?
Part of it,
Break,
Yeah.
huh?
part of it.
There are two weeks of it were done specifically to time. We timed it to try to catch those 2 weeks when they weren't gonna be there.
They were there for some of it, they weren't there for some of it.
this is our question. Apparently that initially, when we first started, we asked, why don't you do this in the summer when the school's closed? But the
Well,
delay
part of it
was
is never really
significantly,
closed. They have summer programming and
Yeah,
stuff. It's less people, sure, but
but it was also a cost factor to it. Like a significant cost factor to delaying it at that
it
particular.
becomes a delay to them.
Because it delays the next contract and the next contract. Okay, so, and we understand that your readings you're being significantly cautious on the safer side. However, it would be nice, and what we'd like to know is that when you do have an alarm, is it asbestos or not asbestos? Because I understand fibers, but fibers mean anything. At some point, we have to kind of have just be thorough so that we have understanding of it. You know, if that day something like that happened, maybe the school doesn't let their kids go out,
Pretty much. Or
you know,
relocate.
like, or something in that general, like some other remediation other than let's just stop. Because if this happened in the middle of the day and kids are already outside, maybe they shouldn't have been outside that day.
So again, that's the thing. It never got to the level that it warranted that reaction.
That reaction.
No, I understand that, Joe. I think we understand that. It's just, you know, construction is all about planning, right? And there's certain things that you can't plan for.
Right.
And my takeaway, and the reason why I asked the lessons learned is because part of me feels like folks are not caring, right? And they're not planning appropriately, right? And so I'm trying to get us away from that, to say, okay, you have a couple of more phases to go. What is the lesson learned?
Well, but so this is, and I hesitate to use the word routine, but this is a routine blip or an anomaly, right? This happens from time to time on construction where you'll get an elevated reading. It didn't get to the point, and they were able to take the actions necessary to make sure that it wasn't worse, or there weren't impacts. So, I mean, this is part of the planning process. These are the steps that were planned for. They did exactly what they were supposed to, should this happen.
When was notification given to the parents?
Notification was given to the school that there was exceedances.
But was notification given to the parents?
No.
That would be through the school.
No,
And we don't know. if the
We don't
school
know.
gave
We
notification.
would have to, we asked,
superintendent didn't even know about this information. The principal, no one knew about this information other than.
so we'd have to confirm who the notification was given to in the school.
Well, the principal is.
No, they didn't know that, well, now the employee apparently misspoke, that it was asbestos. They didn't know that, but now we don't know it either, so.
Good,
Yeah,
Justin?
I think Joe did send you the email, right, that the principal gets, so
Yeah, no, they were informed that there were 3 of 13 samples. They weren't informed of any of the specifics of that, and that was the part, was the specifics.
Yeah.
But they did get notified that there were 3
So
exceeded.
there are no specifics, that's what.
Not in the emails to them, no.
No, in general, from what we've understanding, there aren't specifics. It's just a
No,
vibe.
right, we don't know.
No, Sahara.
And just a quick question in terms of, I live in a very old building. And so one of the things that we advise is not to change tiles and stuff like that because of asbestos dust and walls and insulation. And so while I understand what you're saying, I'm just curious if moving forward, should something like this happen again where there's an exceedance? And I understand that you're doing what is required based on the exceedance. Is there another level that could potentially be added? As this community is made up of a lot of old buildings and there's like, depending on what is displaced, that can be a concern, the asbestos, so that there's not just such a general response like fibers, because fibers can be anything. You have carpet fibers and you have, right? So something that will allay both for the community or whoever's around there, showing that you are going above and beyond your due diligence, which you're already doing by doing the testing when you get that exceedance. But something that, based on the fact that there's a lot of asthma and things like that. I remember with the World Trade Center, and I used to have to go down there. There was found a lot of dust in different areas. So while you think you can mitigate everything, a lot of times you not always can. So I'm just curious if going forward, right, because there's gonna be more demolition and more, is that something that you could consider, like an additional layer of a test to show us exactly what it is so that people could feel confident in everything that you're saying and not dismiss it out of hand like, oh, you didn't just want to do an extra test, like you did what was required based on that, but not to meet the community concern.
So, and I think I'll defer to James on what else could be done, but with regard to the reaction, that was protocol based on the reaction.
Right, that's
on what
already
we
set
found,
up,
right?
right.
But what I need to emphasize is that the monitoring that is in place is so super sensitive upfront, way many more times than it needs to be. That's where the proactive portion of it is. Typically, this might not have showed up on somebody else's radar, but because we are employing such sensitive testing upfront, there was this blip.
No, absolutely, but like right now, if we had a town hall and someone knew of this, and then they would say, okay, but what were the fibers? Or what was the dust made up of? You would say your answer, right, based on your experience and what's specified there. But you wouldn't be able to answer a layperson's, was it this, was it that, because you can only answer at that level. So it was just something that.
Yeah, I just don't know if we can slice the data a different way.
So when,
Right.
for the remaining buildings, we're gonna take a possession on. When we do, we're doing a comprehensive asbestos survey, determining where the asbestos is, we're coming up with abatement plans. All of that abatement being done, you know, we, so far, we don't have another scenario where the structure of the compromised building. We've been able to do comprehensive asbestos surveys, and those materials being removed selectively before we do demolition. And then once we start doing demolition, we're gonna have the same dust monitoring. And so we'll do real-time dust monitoring. If we have any elevated readings, our team will be out there guiding the demolition contractor, stopping work, making sure that we're adjusting the work practices and the dust is controlled.
I would just add too, that just in terms of industry practice, what we're actually doing is on most construction sites, the Department of Buildings would require that there's cartridges that just collect samples and then they take them out and send them to a lab, take them out and send them to a lab, take them out and send them to a lab, and they do that once a day. What we're doing here now, today, is real-time monitoring. So the minute it happens, we stop the work. So what can we do above and beyond now? We're already doing it.
No, it sounds like, I'm not meaning to suggest
No, but you guys
that you're
understand.
not, because I get it. But what I'm saying is, in terms of the second part, where you were specifically asked, was there asbestos, right, like in the dust, was here, that you can't answer. I am not faulting the work ethic, nor that you're following, your protocol, because I get that and I see it. I'm just wondering if there's another layer that should someone come back, like for instance, if you're doing asbestos with a upcoming demolition, abatement of that, right? That would be something that I think the community would be interested to know, that those buildings might have had findings and as part of course, you're mitigating it. But in the instance where something like this should happen again, I was just wondering if there's an additional layer that is not part of the protocol, but can address community concern, if that's something to be considered, which would then put you in a better place when someone asks you a question and you're saying fiber dust, and I say, what kind of dust? Is it asbestos? Well, we're not required to do that because we've already meeting and surpassing what's done. That's just a question.
Sure.
I think to the point earlier we're all talking about managing expectations and mitigating an event. And if you're in the work zone and we've walked by it, if you said you exceeded for, within work hour 2 for 15 minutes, you had elevated fibers, that means nothing to the rest of the community. All we know is there's asbestos. We don't know if it's left the work zone. We don't know if it's elevated into the air, given the wind conditions, and again, based on the fibers. And I think that's where the concern is, just like Nielsen was alluding to. When I lived down on John and Gold, 9/11, post. So we were all impacted by that. And I think that's the concern, especially for the students, the parents, everyone involved, is like, was there an incident that needed to, well, the one you mitigated, but to the degree out of all the fibers, say, 10% were confirmed asbestos in the test when we looked at the lab results, but none of it exceeded that we saw outside of the zone. These were the mitigation steps. Otherwise, it becomes, for us, which is why I think many, not to speak for everyone, I think we're upset, is because we feel like we don't have enough detail. And in many ways, I have to treat it like we have in the past. I jokingly say, draw it on crayon, treat me like I'm 5 or a Labrador Retriever, because I don't know your industry, just like I don't know other industries, but we need to know the transparency behind it, because we have to hear the earful, and we're the mouthpieces for that. And we do care. And I'm not saying anyone here does not care, but we're getting to an end point. And this community, as I said earlier, what often is temporary becomes permanent. And we've been on the receiving end, permanent devaluation of our neighborhood, when we should be treated just the same as the Upper East Side and the others, which is why we've been so fearsome times. So I just take it back to corporate, make sure they understand that, and they give you the tools, because we're going to keep I know I'm gonna keep banging the drum as well, so thank you very much. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you. Next slide. So this is the controlled blasting. We originally had shared that we were expecting to get to this by last Friday. The contractor needed to do some additional excavation to get deeper to the rock, so we pushed that off to June 1. So anticipated test blasting will start Monday, June 1st, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. However, we'll be looking to do those blasts one blast per day over a 7-day period, typically about 3 blasts. So not all 7 days, but what we'll do is we'll do a test blast. We'll evaluate how that blast and the rock responded. We'll clear out all of the debris, test the zone of influence from that blast to understand if, our projections and our calculations are correct. And then we'll conduct additional second and third blasts to confirm those findings. If we need to adjust anything, or change the plans based on the findings of those test blasts, then we will do so and communicate those outwardly, before we get into what they call production blasting, which will ultimately be on average, 1 to 2 blasts per day, over the remainder of this year.
Are you building a muck house on the site where the blasting's happening?
Muck house on the,
No, most of the mucking's gonna come out from 120th Street.
Why wouldn't they build one here?
Most of the excavations, the muckings will be coming out from the.
well, that's from the TBM, but for the blasted material, the excavated material from the blast.
My understanding was that in phase 1, they didn't muck house where they blasted by the stations. And then that resulted in issues, which then had them implement that where they were blasting, wherever sites they were, because when the debris or whatever, they bring it out through there and load it up for, no contamination.
Well, there's anticipated to be a muck house at 120.
There is.
Yeah.
125, 124 and Park. Not here, but when we get to the eventual.
So, okay, so
Yeah.
we're doing some muck house,
Yes.
okay, but then I guess why not, maybe I'm not understanding, why not at this site? But is there a difference in the blasting and the sites?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know if Matt knows if I don't know if there's a black bus muck house here.
I only ask because, there was some lessons learned study done by, whoever the main guy was in phase 1. Yeah, somebody like that, and part of that said to build muck houses, and the big issue with the muck houses, I understand, was they were gargantuan and this, but these are giant empty lots. I think a lot of the drawbacks of muck houses are not, really relevant here. I just put it out there to consider. I'm happy to hear they're being used. I just would like to know if there's gonna be here, why not? That's my question.
So initially with the TBM launch at 120th Street, they will muck out backwards there, and then eventually as they get onto 125, muck out. But for the excavated material from the blasting operations at 125th and Lex, I don't think there's a muck out, they're just trucking it out.
No, so what happens is there's a shaft. You excavate and then you blast the rock and come down, blast go down, and you cut through the rock. So from overhead, the gantries and the cranes will pull everything out and put it into trucks and get it out of there. Each time that there's a blast, there is an overhead cover that's there to stop any fly rock, stop any gas, dust, or anything coming out. So, but for 120th Street, the muck house is literally where the sand hogs go to actually pull all the extracted wet materials out of the actual backlink for the TBM. So, yeah, is it a traditional muck house? There is overhead protection that will be here with gantries and overhead protection to stop, any of the inclement weather to be able to excavate and get everything out. So, there will be an enclosure.
So just to make it a point, it's like mug houses are specialized temporary, like above ground enclosures, and they're like positioned right over the like underground blasting, the shaft side, and their point is to like mitigate dust, mitigate noise. Just because I looked it up.
The muck is all the stuff that gets excavated, whether it's sand, soil, rock, whatever it is, that's the muck.
Right, and so I know what you're talking about building the shaft. My understanding is, I'm not an expert, I did a little reading, is that the muck house, though, is used for that transfer from what's blasted, taken up the shaft door and then put into the trucks, that transfer happens within the muck house. And then that's the main purpose. So this site sounds like it's gonna blast, it's gonna go onto trucks. And so then a muck house may serve a purpose there. I'm just saying that could be why it's used.
Let me confirm if we're gonna back that muck.
Yeah,
I do know that we're gonna have a muck house at 124 and Park. I don't know if we're having one here. And that's again, the byproduct or the rationale for having the muck house here would be to help with the material that's being dropped into the trucks and be
Right,
quieter and things like that.
Yeah.
But
And the dust and as you're dropping into it. Okay.
we'll confirm.
So is that a set date or you're thinking?
Yeah, right
it's-
now, we had a meeting on it today. We met with Transit, we met with all the, concerned parties, interested parties. Moving forward on the first.
And I think you guys confirmed on 24th.
And just to remind everyone, this is not as much, the blasting won't be, it'll be felt more than you'll hear it. Is to my understanding for the most part.
Well, so initially, when you're really close to the surface here, or
Yeah,
the highest
hear it.
points when they start,
You hear
you'll
more.
hear it more, and you may feel it. As it gets deeper, it depends on, again, I'm not an environmental scientist, I'm not even sure it's James's expertise, but, as it transfers through rock or to building foundation, that's how, in that vibration travels, right? So, that's what they're studying now during these test blasts, is how far that zone of influence is with each one of these blasts.
No more council plan for 24th Park as of now.
It's contrary to what Pearson said.
That's what that means.
There's a nursing home right there that does hospice care. and
Yeah.
stuff, And that's gonna affect them.
It's just south of our work area on 125th and Park.
It is really loud, I have recordings.
So today I was walking by 124th and I saw the signs.
Yes.
Okay, so there is only one language, like English, and it's really up high. It's not really like, that I'm able to see it. Like if I'm not, I'm always looking around and taking pictures of everything. So that's why I'm able to see it. Other than that, but a lot of people speak other languages, you know what I mean? This is what it says, blast warning signal, one long horn. What do you mean? Like a big horn, like a
Yes,
car horn, like a
so-
truck horn?
See, 5 minutes prior to the blast, there will be one long sound, 10-second long horn to signal that we're about to start blasting.
Like a car horn, like a truck?
It's like an
horn?
air horn, like almost,
That's it.
no, it's really loud, like a Mack truck kind of horn.
I'm just thinking about all our sensitive with, our kids with sensory
Yeah.
issues, like, autistic, like my daughter's gonna
Very-
freak out.
Yeah.
And she's in the bus stop by 7 AM.
That'll be the same.
Not the 120, but like the 122nd. Another, you see this by blasting, so again, in English only, excluding every other language. Can you please explain to me, it says turn off, I don't understand what this means. Turn off two-way radios and cellular phones, like the public, your workers, everybody, like,
That's what the signage says?
yeah, that is what the sign says. So it's like, is it radioactive? I'm a little concerned. I mean, I'm not
No.
concerned,
I think
turn
it's-
off your cell phone.
I don't know, I don't think that's how radioactive works.
No.
It means a little different.
What the exact nature and rationale behind that sign is, but as I understand it, it's so as not to interfere with the communication between the blaster and the blasting teams. So, let me.
But who, like the public turn off your cell phone when you pass
That's what I
it,
wanna
you know what I mean? Like,
Just wanna confirm, I don't wanna
again, only
misinform
in
anyone.
English, it's not even in other languages, so no one is going to be a page.
Yeah, one of the things we'd asked for, and I'm not 100% sure that all the signage is done, is that we'd asked for sort of universal sort of picture signs too,
Sure.
Like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, like typical explosion.
they don't have like a plunger.
You know what? Sorry, before you guys leave, what is exactly small business services plan quickly?
Yeah,
What level of funding is there? You could tell us more, but like 60 to 90 seconds, what is your planning here?
Oh. So yeah, so my name is Natasha Joseph, Assistant Commissioner for Government Navigation and Regulatory Reform at SPS, Goa. He's part of the NYC Best team, NYC Business Services Express Services team. And so basically for us, what we've been doing is partnering with MTA, on one part of Second Avenue, which is for the business owners who are being displaced. Trying to help make sure that we're connecting them with services, making sure that we can, we have a new space. The commercial lease, we have a program that helps connect them with, making sure that they're negotiating with lease and staying in their place. And then this part that came up because one of the business owners have concern about their revenue. And so while we can't really help with that, we don't really have grants necessarily, but we can connect them with resources as far as financing. So that's just, yes, generally, but NYC Best specifically, we help business owners for being relocated. That was our main work. And then we came here because Joe invited us to.
And then it was low rate.
They do have low rate, loans, they do. Is it low enough for some business owners? Maybe, maybe not, but, that's all relative, right? But it is lower than normal.
Do you guys work with UMass ever?
No, I don't.
So Xavier, you should connect them with UMass, you should connect them with UMass.
Well,
Because the fact that UMass has been silent on this is mind-boggling.
Yeah, I don't know, but we do have, a lot of partners business owners that we do have a lot of, organizations that we partner with.
But they have money specifically, a substantial amount of money specifically that can be invested here, grants, finance, so I will put you in touch.
Yeah, we have information.
We have solutions too, Joe, all right?
But we're definitely here to help the business owners, that's what we're here for, see what we can do, but,
Can you leave us the card so we can?
I have your next contact.
but regardless of whether or not, Second Avenue subway going on or anything else. Also we have a small business expo, like your small business owner coming up on Thursday or June. And so
That's the main one. Grants for most of those go for business.
but yeah, we're regardless, Second Avenue subway or not, yes.
We'll be in touch, thank you.
All right. Oh, this solution, and then that's one of the things, yeah.
We'll also put you in contact with our Echo Dove chair, Xavier, so he can have you on the separate.
We can have the bar.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, we had two final questions for the night. One was, I think you've answered this in the past, but just local hiring, where is the position or where are we? Is local hiring something that is being pushed in this?
Well, I
particular
got
project,
interrupted.
or-
I asked about, you said you're gonna give me a bunch of, so do we have any of that?
So some of it, the primary reason for the inability to answer the 15 or so questions you sent over is we're 6 months into this effort, right? So we're still early on, and especially in a very specialized contract, the sand hogs and the tunnel boring operations, there are very limited non-sand hog specific jobs related to this. Despite that, we're still at about, I think we're the last reporting, and it usually lags by about 2 months. We're at 19%, I think, of the 20% goal. So we're close already. I think some of the specifics you asked about.
But was it 27% on the last slide?
20%.
No, on the last slide, you said, last presentation, you said it was 27% were locally targeted hires. I thought that's what.
Well, so the goal is 20 and it'll fluctuate. It'll go
Okay,
up
so
and
it
down.
was
It might
27.
have been 27 for that period.
I'm not gonna belabor you tonight. Two more questions on that. Just locally targeted.
Yeah.
Can we define what that is?
So locally targeted is essentially Congressional District 13. So that's all of the zips inside Congressional District 13. That's how.
That's by that district?
Pretty much.
So do you consider Washington Heights local hiring for this
I
job?
think that's the northern portion of local.
So Inwood and Washington, yeah, that's gotta be real bad. We don't consider that local.
Well,
hiring.
no, it is East Harlem.
No, it's not.
It is. We are including East Harlem, but it.
Don't let this get territorial. No, it's not.
It's not that, it's that other.
I'm not saying that community is East Harlem, I'm saying we focus on East Harlem, but it's expanded, like the local, there's what we call local. That's that District 13. Then there's Tier 1, which is 25 miles from the project, but in economically disadvantaged zones. And then it opens up to the whole state after that.
I'll say this, then, that definition is not gonna be adequate for us to know who's getting hired, because that could be 20% from, and they could literally all not be from here. And I'm not saying it is.
Yeah.
But that number means nothing, because, not that I don't care about Washington Heights and Inwood. The congressman pays a lot more attention over there. They're taken care of as far as I'm concerned. So they can go get their own job somewhere, but we need, local is East Harlem to us.
One of the things that we're attempting to do now as this project ramps up, or this contract, because it's the first one with the local hiring goal. So in conjunction with our DDCR team and the local hiring coordinator for the contract, we're working on being able to pull metrics that will help us identify, because right now all they do is they send over payroll and it just tells us, they parse the payroll. We're trying to get a better system as we ramp up. We're 6 months into an 8-year effort. So it's gonna be a little.
And the hiring fair, or whatever we're gonna call it. Well, it's been a month now or so, right? So has anything from, like, have people gotten interviewed or
Yeah.
jobs? Okay, what's
So
the
of
feedback
the,
there?
so of the 2,400 people who registered, 960 who showed up. We collected 280 something resumes, 283 resumes, which were all shared with all of the folks in our, the elected officials, the contracting team that was there talking about the jobs they had, the civil service opportunities, the building and construction trades, the workforce development groups. Strive, which I think you guys are familiar with up here, they actually had 28 people from that event register for a class with them for job development training. I still need to get more metrics or input from CUNY, from BCTC, from our folks. So we're still calling that information. Just some immediate or quick results were just those numbers that I have, but.
Yeah, with the payroll analysis that you get in, do you get the zip codes?
I believe so, yeah.
Well, that will be helpful
Yeah.
to helping us determine local hiring.
Yeah.
The two are 129, 135 for us.
Yep. Understood.
Okay.
I had a final question. We had, Carrie King had sent us the contract solicitation notice, project overview, community outreach service for phase 2 of the Second Avenue subway. What exactly is?
So the contract that presently employed Richard and Hector and the EHPC team that's presently occupying the Community Information Center at 69 East 125th Street. That contract expired and we keep extending it. Rather than this inefficient 1-year extension, we just rebid it. We put it back out on the street for now through the end of the project.
Okay. So what you're telling me is somebody could get this RFP and win this bid, and none of the people who've been working since 2018 with the community could not be a part of that now? I saw the list so far of people, and then none of them seem local. I have major concerns if the people who have not been doing this, and you're gonna switch them all up now. That is insane.
But they are all part of that.
But they might not get it. Well, I understand. So now you're gonna go to someone, I have a connection with you for this long, and you're gonna set me back to 0 when the stuff's about to get a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you keep extending it? What was or why can't they do that? My concern isn't them and their contract, but my concern is the relationships that they've built and the trust. And I think a lot of what may not have happened is not at the fault of the consultants. It's the messenger sends the message and then the execution is on someone else. My understanding, having talked to businesses and stuff, is there hasn't been a lack of that happening, the communication. I would strongly, I don't know what you could do, it's already gone out, but that's gonna be a big problem to me.
It is. What can we do? To make sure that, I know we're not trying to incite and, but we're here and it's been so many years invested. And then all of a sudden, someone's RFP gets picked up for whatever preference they have. And then what's the problem? The communication and everything that's been built and invested in all these conversations. You don't ever wanna switch everything around and then we're gonna go backwards and not forward when we're trying to go forward.
I just want to make it clear that the reason for the RFP at this time is, again, the inefficient contract process has nothing to do with their performance. It's not, oh, you guys are underperforming, so we're putting this out on the street to rebid. So it's the internal contracting mechanism inside the MTA has changed since this contract was let in 2018. So they're trying to bring all the contracts underneath the same umbrella.
They can't just give them a new contract. It has to be
It has
RFP.
to be a public RFP, fortunately. Yeah.
I mean, you would understand our concern.
No, I do, and I don't,
I think it's beyond the concern.
I don't want to suggest, but just like, firefighters get, a 5% sort of boost on the exams when they go for civil service, or a military person gets credit. One would think that the folks who are responding to these RFPs, if they have the institutional knowledge and know how to better respond to this RFP, they would have a leg up in that process. I'm not saying it's.
It just took us a little back, because typically when we speak to Dr. Rich, they say work for the MTA, which technically is true, but then when we found this out, I guess so what is the name of the company that currently has this contract?
Well, it's currently a joint venture. It's called East Harlem Community Collaborators, EHCC. It's a joint venture between Spectrum Personal Communications and TY Lin, which is formerly Sam Schwartz Engineering.
The RFP is there a requirement for these consultants for them to have a certain number that are from the community?
Well, that's what I was referring to when I suggested that you get some sort of merit points for different things. I'd have to check and see if there's like a bonus for being from the East Harlem community.
No, I'm more concerned a requirement. I mean, we were at a meeting where, let's just say this, it was a few meetings ago, somebody was joking how they're from Seattle and laughing and saying that they don't really understand it. And I think everybody here sometimes has a little Stockholm syndrome, and we tend to react with a laugh. I find that very deeply concerning, because it's not a joke. You don't understand this community, and nor should you. I don't expect you to. But there are plenty of people who can do that job, who are in this community or know this community. Some are sitting in this room, some are not here. And it's not just the relationships they've built. It's now, there is no guarantee that the people who might be replacing them have any connection to this community whatsoever. It's a paycheck from the MTA, and it's, okay, we'll do whatever we have to do. And that's not, it's going bad enough with people from this community. I mean, I don't know how we're supposed to feel better now with it changing and not knowing who these people are.
When would you decide this RFP?
It's October.
Fall. Nelson, then Xavier?
Just from my experience with our, I run some buildings for HRA, for multi-service centers. There has been in the past where RFPs have been released and have been pulled back. That's from based on community input. And in terms of the contracts that have been given to the multi-service centers, for instance, you have part of that RFP process would say that HRA at their discretion has the right to extend the contract for no less than 3 years. Because they don't want that whole kind of confusion or based and making sure that people who actually apply. So I'm just curious, and that's not an answer that you can say, but if the RFP has been released, but you have no difficulties with the current people in place and they have been performing, I know on the HRA level, there was no problem in pulling it back. And because they thought that at this time, it wouldn't be good to make, have things up in the air. And so that's how I'm acting running a multi-service center that's being redeveloped in East Harlem. And that's how I'm also running the Hunts Point one, because the city automatically extended the RFP for 3 years with another option if they needed to do it another 3. But then after that, they would.
Yeah, so that's the position we find ourselves in. They've extended it a couple of times already. But again, let me speak with our contracts folks and find out what I can, share publicly about, the process and if, requirements, et cetera. Let me confirm that. Again, I don't want to speak this before.
Thank you.
We're done with the slides?
But
Are we done with this thing? Xavier did have his hand. Those just.
Well, RFPs can put in contractual obligations on hiring requirements and preferences, especially from the issuer. Would you put that in to maintain that we have the same timelines and the same people retained? The ones that we've had a long-standing relationship with?
Of gain our trust.
It's trust, it's about
So
trust.
is that something you could put in? Yes or no?
I don't know, because I have
We can find out.
but I
Thank
told
you.
Bill, so I get back to you.
All right, thank you. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Joe?
Appreciate it.
Matt, the rest of the team, we appreciate you all. We're gonna get into like other little weeds, but you don't,
Not about you guys.
not about you. Well, it's just good things that are adjacent to the Second
I
Avenue.
usually get that email from the temp later about what we're told.
I scheduled for you for the morning. No, this has got nothing to do with you guys.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So we appreciate you all. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. Matt. Thank you.
You don't want, I won't bring
I'm out there, I know exactly.
I know you are, I know.
Got something here?
I was right in front of the. You want to do it? I already know where it is.
Oh, okay.
Send you a haircut, so I'm getting used to it.
So patient with that one.
Thanks. Thank you.
Take your time. Have a good night. Good night. Safe, guys. All right.
All righty, buddy.
Perfecto. Lo voy a mandar ahora. Hey, cerebro en la-
Yeah, just that.
Exactly. I didn't hear you. I
So we're-
didn't. What? Get you some.
My mom.
I'm like, I can't present it to you, right?
Yeah, but I'm just going.
Oh, she found it.
So let's, all right, so we can, because it is almost 9.
Just quickly, it's one thing.
Wait, yeah, we're just gonna talk about, in response, it ties into the Second Avenue because of its location really. But as you all know, the situation with Ricardo's, and the liquor license and the proximity and everything. And our chair, Denver, has been working on a bill that we can look at executive next week, but we wanted to bring it up here because it does tie into what's happening and the effects of the businesses that are happening, particularly because it's on Second Avenue, as you all know. And I'll actually let them speak to the details of it. And then we're gonna,
Okay.
and that's his what, his
That
phone?
makes sense, that means he has to come back.
He knew you were gonna keep it, Ken, he knew it.
So basically, there's been a bill in the Assembly and a bill in the Senate for an exemption for Ricardo's from this 200-foot rule, okay? Which, whatever, that's fine, all right, I guess.
No.
No, okay, well, I'm building to whether it's fine or not, things could be done differently. There are businesses on Second Avenue that are being directly impacted by this, construction that cannot get full liquor licenses, that want to get full liquor licenses, but can't because of this 200-foot rule.
And that's a lot of your stuff out.
So the bill, and I'll share it with all of you, it's already been written. All right, kids, can we just, yeah, we don't need, I know, but it's one person to get one door. We don't need the, you know, but just, yeah, I understand, but you know, okay, then we'll just let our licenses. I wrote a bill so that every business within 200 feet, unless it's directly adjacent to a school or a church, can get a full liquor license. And so I want to propose that because clearly there's an initiative there to make this exemption. So if it's okay for that location, why aren't we considering this for everybody?
No, it's a fair, but.
Am I allowed to speak?
Of course, right.
So, did you write this or you're in the process?
I wrote it. Obviously, we need an elected to stick their name on it.
Well, you know that you can actually work with the team, our office with,
I didn't think about that.
yeah, you can. And then we can introduce it through Borough Board. And, you know, get some of the other chairs on or
It's a
not,
great idea.
and then take it from there.
Yeah, essentially, again, it's the 200-foot rule, and it has to be a traditional restaurant, so you avoid bars, this and that. And the SLA could also encourage you, say, school days, you don't start before, we're leaving that ability open. We're just saying that this rule was created at a time where a very different time, there wasn't as much congestion, there wasn't as much mixed use. You have stores now in, not all on the avenue. There's been, I think, no actual research or data that proves that this does anything. You can have a liquor store, a grocery store, people are drinking, and I've never seen a restaurant have a real issue with someone staggering out drunk 2 o'clock on a Tuesday and a kid from school being subjected to this in any way that this should be a state law.
Only because, there's a process to this, we just want to share that what that might be, real quick. You can introduce it, share it with the VP's office, their, policy team would work on it. And then the borough president can actually introduce legislation, however, it has to be in tandem with a council member. So
Actually,
It should be a state,
It's a good to
assembly or senate.
the law that.
Oh, he has connections there, for
Yeah,
sure.
the law that kind of
So
encompasses
he
this.
cannot introduce it.
No,
You can't introduce it, but you could use.
we could use an assembly, senator, or, yeah.
Well, here, and two of our state electeds are putting a bill to make this exemption for Ricardo. So I'm telling them to take it one step further. I don't think that there's been any significant research into that one instance that would make them propose a bill. Was there an impact study on Ricardo's effect on the Jehovah's Witness Church?
So if we get Eddie and Serrano to, work on it together.
I think, no, that, you know what? I want them to I did the work for them. They can edit, I want them to sign it.
A state senator.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Both
Yeah.
sign it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My intention is for that, to give it to them, for us to approve it and send it to them to sign it and put it in.
And to give you an example, on 106th Street, there's a Mexican restaurant called Sol Mayo. That would be very, very interested and would help them significantly is having a full liquor license. Instead of just beer and wine, they have a house of worship, have a school nearby.
Right.
As we've seen from the situation, and we've learned with Ricardo's, like Ricardo doesn't open anytime the house of worship is operating, because I know they do operate. And they never kind of coincide with each other, so neither one of them ever kind of sees each other. At the end of the day, like these laws, some laws are very old. This is a very old law. At a time when we didn't have as many churches as we have. Many, many years ago, you had one house of worship per community, and now there's a lot more houses of worship. On my block, there's at least 10 that I know.
Right.
Two separate issues.
And not just a big church, but smaller.
So with the clarification.
Yes.
My understanding was that the reason why their liquor license was brief. Was because they reincorporated and didn't do the paperwork to reincorporate.
No,
That's a whole different.
No, their license was pulled because they reincorporated it went in as a new application. And when it goes on the new application, they scrutinize more. Someone looked on Google Maps and saw there's a house of worship. In his initial application, 2004, he had put no. And at that time, there was no Google Home, so they just took his word for it. When he resubmitted, and had he done a renewal, it wasn't an issue, but when he resubmitted as a new application, they look at it more. Someone looked at it. They said, well, this is an issue. That was the problem that's happening. Who's handling that?
I'll circulate it tomorrow morning.
And I think this could be beneficial to a lot of other businesses that have this interest.
The SLA still has to approve these, right? It's just saying that it doesn't disqualify them, right? Right now, it disqualifies a business right off the top. The SLA could still say, let's say a church or a school comes out strongly against that and has valid reasons, the SLA could turn around and say, okay, no. But right now, it's a blanket rule that says if it's 200 feet, we will not even entertain.
Right.
We're saying to lift that. Now, you can't be directly adjacent, okay, fine. But
Just to be clear, we're not taking a position on this right now.
no, I
I
just
wanted to let you guys know.
because if there are businesses on Second Avenue, as he mentioned specifically one, that are actually have heard about this bill now and are wondering why something like that can't be done for them.
Because there's an exception to it, and they also.
So let me get this clear. So the establishment is already putting out there that two elected officials are gonna write a bill
No,
just.
they're not putting it out there. The bills have been already introduced to committee. There's
It
public
already-
information. Yes, it's online. You can pull it up.
So it's just for this, because of this one establishment.
It's an
We
exemption for
wanna, for one, but we want to extend it for all, because I mean.
statewide, state bill. It should be for all businesses. Treat
Yeah.
everybody, make the rules the same, the
Yeah,
blanket
not
the
only
same.
that, because Second Avenue Subway is gonna really make a dent in a lot of these businesses that are selling alcohol, right? They selling liquor, and then, you know, it's not gonna be fair.
Which is why,
As a resident first,
sorry,
are you thinking as a resident first?
we'll let the electeds,
Oh, he's asking us.
oh, us. I'm not sure if it makes a point, 'cause
Are you supporting the legislation?
I think we'll bring it up in executive.
On
we'll probably go
what,
vote.
their legislation for one place?
But, because in the reso, you could say,
I think for me, it should be, this is what we want.
What you say?
Well, right, it could be a give and take. You want our support for this, then we'd like you to strongly consider that. I don't think we should just sign anything for them when we haven't asked, and then they're gonna go, oh, we'll think about it. And I think we're actually the ones making the stronger, more legitimate ask here, to be honest.
Definitely more uniform.
Equitable.
And
Or be more fair to the whole community as a whole, not just an exclusive.
exactly. Okay, we just wanted to bring that up,
Yes, I am.
and,
Well, we got, there's a hand there.
sure, for Laura.
So just really quickly, yeah, I think I just have a question. I think it would be a great, I guess, to make some amendments to this rule. I just wonder, I just think about how fast that would actually happen, you know, getting sponsors, and getting it passed through the legislation season, that might take a little longer. Like, it won't happen fast, I don't assume. And then to the points, like, yes, the Second Avenue subway is impacting the businesses, and so taking their you know, them not being able to sell liquor impacts them. But also, just to point out, there's a few businesses that and one, Ricardo's been here for a long time, also big supporter to the block party I've been throwing for the last 5 years, the Juneteenth block party. But they got Monte Carlo, the diner restaurant that sells alcohol, that's right across the street from the place. And you have Harlem Bottle Company that also has 2 churches right next to it. But yeah, so just I think
If
there's
it's beer and wine, I don't know about all of those, but if it is beer and wine, then the 200-foot rule doesn't apply. It's only for establishments.
no, Monte Carlo sells liquor.
And they're
The
200
diner.
feet from the school.
They're across the street from the Jehovah Witness. They're on the east side of
Right.
111.
Then that should be considered. I think the equitable goes both ways. If an establishment is being impacted negatively and there are other ones who should be as well, then that's fair. But then if there's gonna be a rule change for one, then there should be for others. I think it also has to be noted that these have to be exclusive houses of worship of schools. If it's not exclusive, it does not apply the rule. And then I understand that this exemption may move faster through the state than a bill to change, a wholesale sweeping bill to change everything. With that said, the commitment of our local electeds, our state electeds, does not have to wait a year. They could say, we're gonna introduce it and let it take all the time it needs to take. But we need to see that effort of good faith on their part. And that can be demonstrated relatively immediately, the same way they did with this bill.
Okay, so with that, we are going to adjourn. We're gonna take our roll call. Thank you all for coming tonight and all this work.
Thank you.
Present.
Leslie Colon,
President.
Rosa Diaz, Jennifer Meyer, Elsa Rama,
President.
Beverly Paporte is absent, Ashley Rodriguez is absent, Xavier Santiago, Jessica Villanueva is absent, Tammy Vasquez,
Yeah.
and Wendy Euler, that's right.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, Bill.